Okay, let me tell you briefly who we are. This is my wife Claudia, and I am her husband Steve. And we represent the National Center for Biblical Parenting. We do two things for them. We do these parenting seminars, and we do it at Awana conferences and various conferences. We do workshops. And also we do actually the seminars like today, last night and this morning. And also what we do is parent coaching. And that's an 8 to 10 week program that we do one-on-one through the internet and help parents usually with a problem child. At least in their mind, it's a problem child. And so we work with them. And one of the things you'll hear us talk about today is connecting their behavior that you want to a characteristic. And so we'll take a characteristic that we think might solve the problem they're having. And you'll hear some examples of that today. And so that's what we do. It's an 8 to 10 week course. And through that, we've become friends with some people around the nation. We visit people in Minnesota, Louisiana, across through California states, Idaho. And so we've met new friends. We haven't met them personally, have we?
The California people
No.
we have not. Yeah.
And so we've had an opportunity to grow our friendships through the means of Skype. And when we go on vacation, we have a chance to stop by and meet them in person. So it's something that's always available to you. There is a cost to it. I wish it was free. But we may give a special discount for those who attended the seminar because we know you're heavily invested in your children. So let's start out with a word of prayer. Father God, once again, we come to you as we look at what you say about parenting. It's an awesome responsibility you give to us to raise up the next generation, to be followers of you, to be lovers of you. So, Father, as we talk about issues about how to get cooperation, how to deal with disruptive behavior, as we talk about really how to make an impact upon our kids, that you would lead our discussion, that you would give us insight into our own children. In Jesus' name, amen. Now, the reason why we're up here is because Lloyd has been reading the books by Scott Transky and Joanne Miller for a period of time. And he has been very impressed with that material. And that's what happened to us about 11 years ago. Is I was a family ministries pastor looking for something that parents could use that was biblical, simple, and workable. And we also hit upon Transky and Miller. And so we contacted them and said, do you have training? They said, yes, we do. And they had one in Dallas, Texas. So we flew to Dallas, Texas. And we took training from them so that we could become seminar presenters, as well as teaching or helping out the parents within our own church. So we do use these tools. One of the things that we do or have is some people say, I have a child with ADD or ADHD or OCD, and one of the very many initials that we use today. And actually, that's where this program actually started from, is he was counseling kids and saying there has to be a tool to help out kids, especially with ADD. Something that is practical, something that is logical, so that it resonates with those kids and help them out in their behavioral issues. So that's the background of National Center for Biblical Parenting.
Okay, so you will each have a notebook today. We are not going to cover everything in this notebook today. This is yours to keep. There's reference material in there that you can refer back to. And also you'll have your notes to check back when you need a reminder. I would really encourage you that after you leave this seminar today, that you do spend some time with the notebook and really glean as much as you can from that. So there's going to be more covered today. We're going to work through that notebook, but up here on the slides, you're going to see every once in a while in the corner a little page number, and that will help you to know in your workbook which page what we're talking about is on. On the back table, we have note cards pink and blue, and a question box. If you have a question that you would like to have us address at the end of today, if you would write that question on there. We'd like the ladies to use the pink cards and the guys to use the blue cards, only because that gives us some knowledge of the perspective from which the question was written. Because a question of how do I get my 9-year-old to clean up his room is different coming from a mom than it is from a dad. It's kind of two different questions.
Okay, what we're going to be doing today is, first of all, we're going to teach your children to follow instructions. Now, that's what you would love for them to do. You ask them, they say, yes, ma'am, yes, sir. They do it, and they do it with a happy smile on their face. But we're trying to improve the cooperation for your child when you give them instruction. And that will take us to about 11:25, 11:30. Then we actually combine these two into one session. They're actually two different sessions. Since last night we had a discussion about what time this thing started. And so we combine this, and I rearranged some of the slides last night so that we could combine these two. How to use a break and the toolbox of consequences. That is, what happens when things don't go well? Because your children will act up. And then the positive conclusion, which I think is perhaps the most important part of the seminar, is how to do things so that the relationship is still intact and healthy. So first of all, and we'll have question and answers. First of all, the biblical basis. In the front of your book, you have a 4-page outline of a bunch of verses. Those are some of the verses out of the book of Proverbs that basically tell we need to use words to instruct our children. So often we think that if we yell, if we do something else, they will do it. But in Proverbs, over 90 times, it actually uses the word hear, follow, listen to my instructions, or to your mother's instructions. And so apparently Solomon thought that it was wise for us to learn how to use our words in teaching our children rather than punishment. And later on we'll talk about punishment in the book of Proverbs. Here's a few verses. Hear, my son, your father's instruction, and do not forsake your mother's teaching. Proverbs 4:10. Hear, my son, and accept my sayings, and the years of your life will be many. Now, I know that we may use that jokingly as the kids get older. The reason you have grandkids is the fact that you allowed your kids to live. But somehow, someone felt the same thing, is the fact that the years of your life will be many. And Proverbs 8:33, heed instruction and be wise, and do not neglect it. So it's an important skill for our kids to learn to respond to words, not just for us as parents or their boss, but also for them to learn how to listen to God and follow His words as well.
Okay, to start off my part here today, I've got a little comic strip. You might be familiar with this one. It says, Michael, you were the one who wanted the dog, and you agreed to brush and look after him. Don't hang your underwear on the doorknobs, put them to the wash. Michael, give that to Lizzie, she had it first. And I asked you to tidy up this mess. Grumble, mumble, grumble, grumble. I don't like being a nag, honey, but we all live together and we have to get along. We have to cooperate. You know what cooperation is, don't you? Yeah, I gotta do everything you say. And that's sometimes the way kids especially will look at what we mean as cooperation. And we feel like our kids aren't cooperating because they aren't doing exactly what we say. And come on in, grab yourself a notebook there and a pen, and come in and have a seat. But today, we're going to take a look at cooperation and what it means in the family. Most parents say things like, my kids don't do what I ask. They only do a job part way. They don't listen. I have to nag. or yell to get anything done. Anybody relate to any of those things? Now and then? Anger and frustration, we talked about anger last night. Anger and frustration are good tools to identify a problem, but they are not good tools to solve a problem. And I'd like you to kind of carry this thought away with you in your brains whenever you're starting to get angry, to remember that anger, good tool for that there's a problem here, but however, anger does not solve the problem.
Okay, to get started, I'd like to have all of you stand up. I know you have things in your lap, but put them in a chair. Stand up. And I'd like to have you stand on one foot. Okay, you put that foot down. Now I want you to turn to your neighbor and make a face, or the person behind you. I'd like to have you play a guitar, air guitar. I'd like to have you turn around in a circle twice. Okay, we can do this just because of the numbers and the genders that are represented here. Scratch your neighbor's back. Okay, sit down.
Yes, sir.
Okay, you got your juices flowing. How many of you did every one of the instructions? Every one of them you did. Some of you didn't. And so I'm going to focus in on you who did not. Oops, I guess we have this here. We have to kind of stay in the frame here. Why didn't you do with them all?
Because I was actually dealing with the last thing.
Okay? Who else didn't do them? Why not?
I did.
You did them all. Why didn't you do them all?
She did do them all.
Behind you.
She gets it.
Did you do all of them?
No, because I'm still catching up.
She's still catching up. Anybody else not do everything?
Because you feel silly.
Feel silly? Okay. Do you realize some of this goes through our children's minds too? And you were given instructions. I had something else more important right now to do than what you asked me to do. I made this judgment in my mind. What I'm doing is more important than the silly things that he's asking me to do. Okay, so I want you to get kind of that mindset to see this a little bit from kids' point of view when we're giving them instructions. So learning to follow instructions is a life skill that is needed. Not all of your kids are going to become scientists. Not all of them are going to be. Scientists have to follow instructions explicitly. Otherwise, you can really mess things up. How many of you are cooks and follow recipes? Some of you are cooks and don't follow recipes. Okay? And you realize that following the directions becomes very important in some recipes. If you forget and you didn't whip the egg whites first, and you just added the eggs, you don't have the outcome that you had hoped. Okay? So it becomes important. So we're going to give you today an instruction routine that I think you will find very doable, easy to do with your kids. Your kids can learn their part, but this is going to give you a place to start with increasing cooperation in your home. It's a two-step routine. Part of it is the parent's responsibility of the routine, and part of it is the kid's responsibility. And I do believe if you have kids downstairs, that they are learning today their part.
At least we hope.
We think they are. They're part of this routine and the other things we're talking about. So when you go home today and you talk about this instruction routine, your kids have already learned some of this. They're learning it through play, through crafts, through stories, and games. So they're learning this same material that you're learning, but from the kids' perspective.
So I'm going to represent basically the instructions from the parent's viewpoint, and Claudia will represent the child. It has no reflection upon us. It's just how we divide the material. And they do not necessarily have to be in this sequential order. Is I do my part, the child does his part, I do my part, the child does his part. It might be a mixture of how to make it work, but these are just 5 steps for the parent and 5 steps for the child. And they can come in any order. So the first step for the parent is get close to your child.
And you'll notice that little page number up there, page 4 in your book.
So as we get close to our child, how many people here are yellers? I'm a reforming yeller. Okay, I used to yell at my kids, especially my son, way too much. There is still that habit that creeps up once in a while, and I find myself yelling at one of my grandchildren, who can be just as stubborn as his father. I find myself having that tendency. But what happens right here? Mom likes to play this game called Yell from 4 rooms away and gets upset when I don't hear her. How many get into that routine? You yell and you hope that your kid can hear you. Or husband and wife do the same thing. Is instead of getting close to the person, we yell. Or something like this. It's not easy being a mother these days. Texting in all caps just doesn't have the same impact as good old-fashioned yelling. Okay? And so, sometimes we think that yelling is the way to get our child's attention. A better way to get your child's attention is to get close to them. And this is from the child's perspective. They always look so sweet and peaceful when they're asleep. Yeah, you wonder how they could ever yell at us during the day. But one of the things is, if I'm getting close to my child, I'm starting to do certain things. One, I don't have to yell because I'm close to them. And we're going to see several benefits of getting close to your child. First one is, it breaks my child's concentration. Is their focus, just like we asked you to do that simple routine of standing up, doing those various exercises. It's the fact that your child is involved in play, they're involved in a game, they're involved in schoolwork, but they're involved in something, and you're basically interrupting what they're doing. Do you like to be interrupted when you're doing something that you consider important? No, and your child is no different than you are. But getting close to the child allows me to break their concentration. It also increases the value of the instruction. If I took time to get up and walk over and to talk to my child or go into his or her room, it means the fact that I think is important. It builds relationship. Now, how many have been in a workplace or home life, it might be the home you grew up in, where yelling was the norm? How'd you like it?
I ended up doing it.
You ended up doing it, but did it build relationship?
No, it doesn't.
No, it doesn't build relationship. And if I get close to my child and they don't yell, that means the fact that I can build my relationship with my child. It's going to be easier to have that relationship go on if I'm close to them and not yelling. And then it increases cooperation. That is our goal down the road through this seminar. How do I increase my cooperation? So what does it involve? Well, how many have kids that are taller than them? Than you are? Okay, how many have, did I say taller?
Taller.
Yeah, how many have kids shorter? What's the youngest kid we have represented here?
Well, I have a 6-month-old, but I also have a 4-year-old.
Okay, 4-year-old.
You win.
Yep. Do you realize what you look like to a 1 or 4-year-old? It's a basic equivalent as you looking if you're working at a 9 or 10-foot person. Thinking, okay, you're up there. In our church, we have one teenage boy who is now turned 16, and he's 6'11". 16.
Just turned 16.
They expect him to max out at about 7'4". You would go into his presence and think, hi, Samuel. It's intimidating for to encounter a 16-year-old and hit being, 6'11". Well, your kid is intimidated by you. So what is it about? Sometimes getting down on their level. Squatting over, getting down like that. Sometimes getting down on the floor. Sometimes it may be picking up the kid, put them on the counter, and say, hey, I would like to talk to you. Somewhere you're making eye-to-eye contact and not you looking down like this. It may be for a teenager, putting your hand on their shoulder. Just to break that concentration and say, hey, everything's cool between us. And so we can talk about this. And words like this, listen to me for a minute, or I need to talk to you. It allows them to break concentration and realize, okay, mom or dad's not going to be yelling at me. They're going to be talking to me. So this one action will allow you to perhaps increase cooperation between you and your child.
Okay, so parents, get close to your child. The child's part of all this is to come when you are called. And this is an important thing for us to teach our children, whether they are 1, 11, or 18. Okay? To come when you are called. So, with our little ones, we can play what we call the come when you're called game. And I actually did this with my grandkids when they were all little, 4 and under. And so I said, Tristan, I want you to go sit on the step over there. And when I call your name, I want you to come kind of as fast as you can. Don't fall into things. And you come up and say, what, Grandma? So let's try it. Tristan, and he came running, what, Grandma? I said, oh, you did it. I knew you could. Okay, I said, you know what? Let's try it one more time. You go over and sit on the couch, and I'm going to go out in the kitchen. And I did. And he came. I said, okay, I'm going to get tricky. And I started calling out other names. Not Tristan, but I finally got to his, and he came. And I said, you know what? I like this game. I said, we're going to do this, and sometime when you're playing today, I'm going to say your name, and I want to see if you remember the game. And you come. So he was involved. I called, and he came. I go, oh my goodness, I can't believe you did. You remembered it. And, give him a hug, whatever, to reinforce this coming when called. And with your little ones, this can actually be a safety issue with them. If they are used to ignoring you when you call them, they could be about to get into a dangerous situation, and you call their name and they know that they are to come, rather than, or running. I've also seen that. They're called and they take off. Okay, so we want to get kids used to coming when they're called. Now, if you have a 10-year-old, an 8-year-old, a 12-year-old, a 14-year-old, you're not going to play the come when you're called game. I guarantee you it will not be well received. But what you can do with your older child, over here, put a hand on the shoulder and say, we've been doing a lot of yelling recently.
That would be them too.
It's not very respectful to you or me. And I don't like it. And I don't think you like it either.
No.
And so, what I would like to do is that we make an agreement that before we start talking, that I will either come to where you're at to talk to you, or sometimes I will call you and I want you to come to where I'm at. And I think that would give us a lot more respect for one another.
That seems both practical and reasonable.
You are not a teenager.
But a child.
You have matured out of that age.
A+.
But you can approach this idea that we're going to get closer to each other. We aren't going to be yelling at each other across the house and set up this yelling match. I can't hear you. And we yell louder. I don't know what you're saying. Okay. Or I didn't hear you. Anybody have a kid who's, I didn't hear you ask me to do that. Okay. So by getting close to our child, we value and honor one another. And I'm just going to give you here, and I don't think this is in your book, but you can write this down. But what is honor? We also do a seminar on honor. But what is honor? It's to treat someone as special. It's to do more than what's expected, and to do it with a good attitude. And that's our definition of honor. Okay? And by just this thing of getting close and the child coming, we show honor to one another.
Step 2 for the parent, consider the timing. Is sometimes we react rather than actually try to intentionally parent our children. Is, for instance, you come home from a hard day's work, Susie's bike's in the driveway, you've told her 1,000 times, don't leave your bicycle in the driveway. Someday I'm just going to run over it. And so you're upset, you throw the bicycle out into the lawn, you go storm in the house, yell Susie's name. Susie can't hear you, so you yell louder. Finally, you start searching the house. And then you go in and find her in the bathroom with a bunch of Band-Aids. And you find her trying to cover up a bunch of scrapes and bruises on her body. You think, oh man, I'm a horrible parent. Is one of the things about considering the timing is to realize your child at a very early age develops in their mind their own agenda. Things they want to do. Things they want to accomplish. And you can ask them, what are you going to do today? Nothing. Well, actually in their brain they actually have things they want to do. And so we want to consider the time. One of the things that happens is the 4 Ds to consider. Distress. Is your daughter comes home from school. You have a bunch of chores for your daughter to do. But she comes in and you just tell by the look on her face, something went wrong today at school. Maybe I need to deal with that instead of assigning a task. Because something is wrong with her. I can tell in her face. Sometimes we get distracted. It's easy in today's generation for our kids to be distracted. Sometimes, how many wish that they could throw out every electronic in the house? Yeah. Sometimes our grandkids get so absorbed, and we have one son in particular. We only have one son, so it's him. But you can sit at a table. He can be so involved in his phone. You can be 4 feet away from him, and he will not hear what you're saying. And that's the advantage of getting close, and to consider the timing. And I notice with his own boys will say, Dad, Dad, Dad. Oh yeah, what? Well, adults get distracted, your kids get distracted as well. Sometimes they're just plain different. Our 2 children are different. Our son, when he came home from school, needed to play. He had to get that energy out of the system. Our daughter, who was very much of a student, came home and the first thing she wanted to do is to hit the books and get her schoolwork done. We had to treat them differently. When was the best time to talk to them? Well, one was basically they had to do what they had a priority. Not always, but it's something to consider. Or that the fact that they're dedicated is their own agenda. So step 1 was getting close to your child. So when you start to give instruction, this allows you to see what's going on in that child's life. Does the child need more responsibility or more relationship? If they're in distress, they need more relationship. If they're just being irresponsible, they need more responsibility. So consider timing doesn't mean I postpone everything, but it just allows me, is this the best time to get cooperation? Or can it be a little bit flexible and let me do it a little bit later? So, once again, it places value on the relationship between parent and child, and it also shows respect to your child. The fact that you realize they have an agenda as well.
So, does this just mean that we let the child call the shots? You know, yeah, you just do what you have to do and I'll somehow fit into your schedule. No, it doesn't. The child's responsibility is to always be ready to receive instruction. This character trait is a step that develops the characteristic trait of selflessness. Putting somebody else's needs in front of mine. I kind of came up with this, probably about 30 years, 40 years ago, that the beginning of the deterioration in families in the U.S. was the second bathroom in the home. Because before, when there was only one bathroom, you had to consider somebody else's more urgent need than yours. And let others go first if they had a more urgent need. So that was my own theory. Okay. But there's selfishness and selflessness. Opposites, antonyms here. Selfishness thinks of myself and what I want or what I need and my own agenda. Selflessness is giving up my own agenda for what someone else wants or needs. And that's a huge adult skill. And yet we are wanting our kids to do it all the time. Not that that's wrong, because we're teaching them this adult skill of selflessness, where I give up my agenda, what I had planned to do, for something someone else wants or needs. Do you remember back when you had a newborn? You may have wanted to sleep really, really badly, but you gave up that because someone else had a pressing need or a want. And that's what kids need to learn also. So if I'm involved with my computer game, my Madden football game, my, what's the other one? What's the?
Minecraft is what our kids-
Minecraft, you know, whatever it is, you know, I need to learn that when I'm asked to do something, I need to be able to give that up. And that it's probably a discussion if your child has trouble with that, is, you know, this is a privilege, and you've got to show that you can give that up to do what needs to be done. You know, and I've learned enough about Minecraft, only to this, I've never played it, but to know that you can get to a safe place. You know, and so you can say, you know, you've got 5 minutes to get to a safe place and put it away, rather than just, I said it, shut it down. I respect that they're involved with something. I don't expect if I'm involved in something and Steve comes in and says, Claudia, I need your help. If I'm really involved in something, I might say, can you wait 5 minutes? Funny story. We were hanging Christmas lights one year. This is about 3-4 years ago. And our oldest grandson, who was probably about 11 at the time, he was out helping Papa put up Christmas lights. And I'm busy with something in the kitchen. I was doing something. He comes in and he says, Grandma, Papa needs your help. And I had something on my hands. And I said, well, is it an emergency? I don't know. I said, well, it's not like he's hanging from the gutter or something, is he? Yeah.
That's hilarious.
So that was just so sometimes when, and then of course I dropped what I was doing. He couldn't decide if it was really truly emergency or not. So you want to impress on your teenagers or near teens of what it is. Also, if you got a job at the grocery store and you're working for someone and your boss or manager comes and says, John, I need you to come here. You wouldn't say, oh, wait, I'm stacking these cans. I'll come when I get done with this. No, you need the skill of saying, oh, okay, I leave this and I go do what someone is asking. So this really is an adult skill. And so you can talk to your older kids about that skill being developed. And when you're given an instruction, it's not just so you can have help getting things done around the house. How many of you feel like all the things you ask your kids to do probably could be done more efficiently and better if you just did them all yourself. Yeah. But, so why are you asking the kids to do it? To teach them responsibility. And that's what we want to develop in our kids.
Okay, so 2 steps for the parent and 2 steps for the child so far. Now for the parent, give the instruction. Is you got close to your child, you see what's going on in their life, now to give a clear instruction. Now, most of our instructions are vague instructions. For instance, it's getting late, you should go to bed. What instruction did you give them?
A general one.
A general one? Did you ask them to do anything? No, it's an announcement of what time it was and what should be happening at this time of day. You know, the sun's going down, I guess we should turn on the lights. Well, it's not really instruction. I think you should do your homework. What's the instruction? It's your opinion. Okay? Would you like to get ready for bed? No. Not really. I have a choice. It's a yes or no question. And sometimes you have to say, let me rephrase that. That was a bad question. Okay? I give you an example. When I was about 11 or 12, we had a company, a missionary that was going to stop in. They were in the next town away, which was about 20 minutes away. They called my parents. This is before cell phones. And so they called my parents and said, hey, we're going to stop in. Is it okay if we stop in? And they said, yeah, sure. Well, my mother was always an immaculate housekeeper, and so the house was always ready for company. It didn't matter what time of day it was, or night, or day of the week. The house was always clean, except for one room. Do you want to guess whose room it was? My room. My room was always messy. So my mother called me in from outside, says, hey, our missionary friends so-and-so are coming in here. They'll be here in 20 minutes. Do something with your room. You're an 11 or 12-year-old boy that's been outside playing. What do you do?
Push everything.
Huh?
Push everything into the closet.
No, that's too much work. I grabbed a 3x5 card, wrote on the card, disaster area, keep out, taped it to the door, shut the door, and went back outside. My mother was wise enough to realize I did what she asked me to do. She didn't tell me to clean my room. She didn't ask me to pick up my room. She said, do something. And I did exactly something. Okay, we had a parent that we were coaching. And 3 daughters and mother and father. But the father there was miscommunication between father and daughters. He was frustrated that they never did what he asked them to do. So I said, okay, this week, Pete and girls, you keep track of how many times you give instruction, Pete. When you think you give instruction, tell me how many times you do it. Girls, how many times did he actually give you instruction? Next week they came back. Girls, how many times did they give you instruction? 0. And he says, what? I asked you to do all sorts of things. No, you didn't. You make observations. You told us that the grass was getting tall. You told us the fact that the cat fan was starting to smell. He made all sorts of observations and never a single instruction. So give a clear instruction. Okay? So, what do we do? How to give a clear instruction? First of all, use a calm voice and matter-of-fact voice. You don't need to yell or scream. Just a calm voice. This is what you need to do. And the 3 W's for parents. Who? Use a child's name. Susie, Johnny, Katie, Kayla, Tristan, Caden, Richard, the 4th. Okay? I just named some of our grandchildren.
Yeah. He named them all. Oh, we only have 4.
Yeah. But use a child's name. What you need to, and then give the instruction, and then when. Because a lot of times we don't tell them when.
is I need to have you take out the trash. Is that today, tomorrow, next week? Okay? So something like this would be, you know, Johnny, the trash is being picked up tomorrow. You need to take the trash cans out tonight. Or a little bit of Susie. We're getting supper ready. You need to set the table now. So you tell who's supposed to do it, what needs to be done, and when it's supposed to be accomplished.
Okay, step 3 for the child is the child answers. And I must say, this is becoming more and more of a lost art in our society, both between husbands and wives and between parents and child. That somebody will say something to them and we give no response. And this is an important skill for us to teach our kids, is to give a response. After the instruction has been given, it's important that the child acknowledges that instruction with an okay, on it, got it. One thing our son used to do when he was young, it got him in trouble one time with a substitute teacher, but we accepted this. We took it as no form of disrespect. When he got something, he'd give us a little salute. Okay? Well, in 6th grade, he had a substitute teacher one day. It was a guy, and the class had kind of gotten a little bit out of control, and the teacher laid down the law, and our son gave him a salute. So I went and I got a hold of that substitute teacher and told him that truly was not a sign of disrespect. That was his, I got it, I'm on it kind of thing. So whatever you do with your kid to have a response, what's acceptable for you, but that they do give a response. This response tells you 3 things. It tells you, first of all, that your child is heard. Especially anybody that has a child over 7 years old. How many times have you heard after you've given an instruction, oh, I didn't hear you say that? Ever hear that? Yeah, a lot. That's the best excuse, even if they did, to hear that. But this response tells you that they heard you. Secondly, it tells you that they intend to follow through. If they say okay, it's kind of like they're signing a contract with you. Okay, I got it, I'll do it. It also gives you a glimpse of your child's attitude. And if you have coming through a bad attitude here of a, ugh, whatever. We've got an attitude here that needs to be dealt with, and it's important that you do deal with that attitude and let the child or the teen or the preteen know that's not an acceptable answer. Would you like to try again? And work through that. Don't let that bad attitude continue to grow, and let them think that that's an okay response to have of that disrespectful, grumpy, or no response. So be careful that you don't let go. Do not let a serious heart problem develop in your child where this becomes their way of operating through life. So an answer confirms the process and communicates that we're all on the same track, that we all know what's going on. Now, we had a little bit of trouble with one of our grandkids once who, 3 of them are grandsons, so this was one of the grandsons, who would say, even though he said okay, would say, oh, I really didn't hear you. So we had to go through a time until telling, since you're having trouble with this, we need to start for a while until you can get this under control of you telling me back instead of just saying, okay, you repeat back the instruction you were given. Because sometimes, especially if they're involved in something else, they have something else on their mind, they might indeed say, okay, but still not heard a word you said. So if you have a child who's having that trouble, you might try that and tell them, this isn't going to be forever. But just for a while, we're going to do this so to help you to listen what you're saying okay to. It's important to know throughout life what you're saying yes to, what you're signing the contract for. Important skill.
Okay, now that the child's answer says, yes, I'm on it, or I will do it, it is now for the parent to wait expectantly. How many really expect their children to obey? I mean, there's a lot of times where we think, oh man, if they obey, that'll be a miracle. We do get that approach sometimes. But in this process, I have taken the weight off my shoulders and now have placed it on the child's shoulders. He said he was going to do it, and I believe that they are going to do it because they gave indication, the fact that they respond and say, yes, I'm on it, yes, I'll do it. The weight's on their shoulder. But me as a parent, what do? Well, I wait expectantly. Now that's hard because we have all sorts of different type of parenting styles. In a second I'll show you a few cartoons, but basically we have the helicopter parent. Now if there are 2 or 3 that might need to use this, but basically we have the helicopter parent watching and hovering over them, making sure that they do it. You've missed a sock over here. You need to pick up this book and put it on the bookshelf. You need to do, right? We got the helicopter plan. We got the annoying parent. Is there sort of a public announcer? You told them the fact that they had to get their room clean in the next 30 minutes. So you give them a countdown, especially about 10 minutes into the deadline. Got 10 more minutes. Got 5 more minutes. The countdown begins until we finally get down to the last seconds. 10, 9, no, time's up. You ever run into that type of parent? There's this parent that's sort of like this one. You're doing that wrong. Let me do it. That's not right. I'll do it. Give that to me. That's not how I do it. That's not how I like it. Here, let me. That's not how I want it done. Give it to me. Must I do everything myself? Apparently so. We have a parent that is a perfectionist. How many people here are perfectionists? Oh, I bet your poor kids. Oh no. Is the fact that they can never, actually I counseled a girl who ran away from home because her mother was too much of a perfectionist. She could never match up to what the mother wanted. And so at 15 she ran away from home. Here's another one. Just talking about somehow our kids get distracted. Did you clean your room? It's a very sad tale. Hours of false starts, dead ends, and distractions. I finally decided to do a 30-page outline on how to logically proceed. Where is the outline? I lost it in a pile of socks around the beach. Okay, so we do have those tendencies, unless you think that they're done. Distractions. Look at your hands, they're filthy. March right in there and wash them. Your hands are still dirty. We forgot to wash them. See, while we're waiting expectantly, we forget sometimes kids are still kids. Okay? There is a place for reminders. How's it coming? You know, is there anything that you need from me? Especially if they're probably in the 3 to 9 or 10-year-old range. Is there anything you need from me? Not tell them how to do it, but just a little reminder that you're still thinking about what they're supposed to be doing. A gentle reminder. And sometimes it's the fact that they actually do need a reminder. Susie, I'm starting the laundry and I haven't seen your laundry down here yet. One time we asked Tristan, our oldest one, when he was younger, we asked him to put away toys in the closet. Now he was used to this routine. Yes, I'll do it. So he went, pretty soon he came back, says, Papa, I've run out of room. Where do I put the rest of the toys? I said, well, you got that little shelf there, you can put the rest of the toys on the shelf. Okay. So he did that, came back, and did what the next step is, came back to us, said he was done, so we went to look at it. He had lined up all the trucks next to each other, facing outward, across the floor of the closet. That's why he ran out of room, because he still had more trucks, and they were so neatly arranged. He didn't have room for them. He didn't just throw them in the closet. So this is a trait that you need to teach your children, is to wait expectantly. One time in our church, we had a barbecue. And she was about 10 or 11. She asked me, can I get the hot dogs? I said, sure, go ahead. Well, she had a helicopter parent. Pretty soon I heard her parent over there. Megan, you got to do this. Megan, you got to do that. Megan, you got to turn that dog on. Now, Megan, you got to do this. Guess who ended up cooking the hot dogs? Mom. Rather than allowing the kids to learn things, I mean, what can you do to a hot dog? I mean, let's face it, of all the foods to cook, you know, you burn a few, so what? You drop a few on the ground, they get washed off, you can still eat them. Okay? And so we want to take the weight off our shoulders and put on the child's, and for the child to respond with responsibility.
So step 4 for the child is to do the job as if on a mission. The child has signed that contract, that verbal contract with you. Now they go to do that job. Most kids know what a mission is in today's world, to go on a mission, and I'm not talking about the LDS church mission. I'm talking about, you know, like a military mission or a espionage mission. They all being exposed to that sort of thing. You're not distracted by other things when you're on a mission. How many of you are shoppers? Love to browse the stores, up and down the aisles. How many of you are mission shoppers? You're out to get what you're getting, and then you get done and get going. I'm a mission shopper. I go in, I'm going here, I'm getting this, and I'm done. Okay? So that's doing a job as if you're on a mission. Now, with a younger child, if you tell them, let's say a 3-year-old, go clean up your room, what does that mean to a 3-year-old? I don't know. So you need to start telling them when they're young, say, okay, you're going to have 3 things you're going to do. You're going to put all your dirty clothes in that hamper. You're going to smooth out your bed and put your toys away. Those 3 things, and make it just those 3 things. Sometimes you might want to do even little drawings of having them and let them choose out there. A picture of a shirt, that means picking up your clothes. A picture of books, that's put away toys and books. You know, a picture of a bed, that means you kind of smooth out your bed and make it look pretty. Okay, that's what you're going to do. Or someone maybe that has learning disabilities, you may want to just break it down. If you have an older child, you may want to say, I have 3 things for you to do today before you take off. You need to mow the lawn, you need to clean out the car, and you need to pick up your room. And that, you know, once you're done, you're done. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Okay? So, for older teens, you can also do this thing that I really like. Older kids and teens. Oh, responsibility. This, I mean,
I was going to take out the slide. I forgot to take out the slide.
Okay, there you go. Completing a job without being reminded. Stick to a job without someone prodding you. Reporting back when the job's completed. And the last one and most important is abiding by values when no one's watching. That's when you're taking responsibility. Okay, this cute little thing here is really nice to use with older kids and teens. And this is, do what you say you would do. Do what you say you would do. And that's integrity. Oh, I forgot. I go first this time. Okay, step 5, we've always been going parent, child, parent, child, parent, child, parent, child. Now that responsibility, that weight is on the kid, and it's for the child to report back. And this is a very important step. These last 2 steps, I think, was what I missed when I was parenting our own kids, were these last 2 steps, and I can see how it can make all the difference in the world, and we have seen it with our grandkids. This reporting back. After completing the task, the child is to report back and tell you that it is done. What you asked me to do, I have done. It gives that child that sense of accomplishment. I did it. The same way if you had a boss who says, you know, I'd like you to pull the figures on this, whatever, and get them to me by 2 o'clock this afternoon, and you do it, you lay it on the desk and say, they're done. It's that reporting back. Here it is, it's done. So it teaches children accountability. An accountability, reporting back. I have done the job you gave me to do. I know this was important to you. For some reason, this was important to you, and I've done it. So this is the reporting back. Let's see, that's the slide I've got here. So I'm done.
And for the parent, inspect and release. You have given your child a task, they said they're going to do it, you're waiting to pay, expectantly for them to complete it, now they report it back saying, I'm done. What do? Hey, great. No. If you want to sit there and say that this task was important to me, I inspect and release. Is I see if it actually is done. Or if it's not done, tell them what they need to do. But here is significant reasons why you want to inspect and release. You can acknowledge the accomplishment and give praise to the child. Hey, when Tristan lined up all the trucks, Tristan, that was a great job. Not only did you do what I asked you to do, but you went beyond that. You did a super job. And so it's a time to give praise. Don't you like the little bit of praise? Hey, that lawn looked really great today that you mowed. For some reason, it just looks better than average. It looked great. Or the fact of a meal that you cooked. That was a great meal. We like to hear praise of accomplishments. And our kids like to hear praise of their accomplishments as well. You can reinforce a character trait. And this is one of the things that we'll start talking about, is reinforcing character traits. You know, I asked you to do a job and you obeyed. That was great obedience. I saw that you did this with a great attitude and you were joyful about it. You wanted to please others. That's a great trait to have in life. Is you can pick out something about what they're doing, not to just the task, but why it is important to their character. Because their character is what's going to carry them through life. And so what is going to get me to be successful? It is the fact that I am praised for my accomplishments. A little story about Tristan. We talk about Tristan and Caden a lot because we're with them 5 days a week. For some reason, Tristan's on the short side, as well as all the rest of our grandchildren. When they're all together, they look normal. When they're with any other kid, they look short. But how many people watch American football? Or Canadian football? I know Canadians have football too. But it's not quite as big as American football, okay? It's not quite as big, okay?
That's fair.
I've never heard the Super Bowl of Canada yet, okay? Just saying, Tristan's probably about up to here to me.
No, honey, he's taller now. He's grown. He's outgrown.
He's about up to here. Okay? He's a hard worker when it comes to sports. He's played positions that small people don't play. Is the defensive line have the biggest guys on the team on the defensive and offensive line. the coach thought, this year I bet you could do a great job on the defensive line. And not just any position. You're going to be at the center of that defensive line. So you see him line up. Big guy. Big loser. Over here. Big loser. Over here. And their counterparts cross from them. And then you got Tristan. Okay? He got more tackles. That got Defensive Player of the Year. Yeah, you sit there and say you're a great football player? No, I connected to his character. Tristan, your hard work paid off. Hard work will pay off in life. It's not the fact that you got some breaks, it's the fact that you worked hard to make it happen. And so reinforce characteristics. And you're going to have a teachable moment. It may be the fact that, it's not exactly what I wanted. Caden, who sometimes can stuff up on doing things, he came out one day and proudly announced the fact that he cleaned the room, the toy room.
Which used to be known as the study, but now it's known as the toy room.
And so he comes out very proudly and says, I cleaned the toy room. We didn't ask him to do this, he just did it. So Claudia goes up there and I go up there and Claudia says,
Caden, what did you do? You didn't do anything here.
Okay. That wasn't exactly the way we were supposed to respond to kids' initiative. So it was one of my few moments of brilliance. I said, Caden, is there anything on the floor that you could possibly say that could still be picked up? Oh yeah, I can pick this up. Did you see anything else? Oh yeah, I can pick this up. I said, well, why don't you see if there's anything else on the floor you could pick up? And so he went and cleaned up the room. But it was a teachable moment. If you say you're going to clean up the room, it means a certain expectation. If you say you're going to clean the kitchen, you do it. But now what do you do after you inspect? You release. Is one of the freedoms that we have is the fact you release the kid back to what they're doing. You completed everything I asked you to do. I asked you to do 3 things, you did those 3 things. Go ahead, go back to playing. Go back to your game. Go back to writing. Go back to, don't you like it when you've been interrupted? And say, hey, I'm done with it. Go back to what you're doing. Our kids like that too. So you inspect to see, make sure it was done. But then you also release it because that's what we like. And one of the things that, does anybody remember Columbo? Columbo's got to be a data detective of another era. And obviously it's a real old era because I think there's only 2 of us know who Columbo is. But don't date yourselves. Okay?
Oh, yeah.
What was he known for?
I can't remember. I just remember he's naked.
And he would always walk away when he solved a mystery. You know the person was in trouble. If you started to walk away, turned around and said,
Oh, yeah.
I got one more question.
That's right.
And you know he was going to nail it.
Yeah.
Okay? Well, you don't want to have those moments. You just want to release them. You don't want to have Columbo moment. Saying, oh, now that you've done, this is for people that, how many people are list people? My wife is a list piece. Every time we go someplace, there's a list. Okay, list of things to be done. You know what the problem with list people is?
Keep adding more.
Adding more. Is the fact that the list is never completed. Now that you've completed those 3 items I asked you to do, and I still got time, you got another half hour yet. Let me give you some more. Is that motivation for your kid? No. It's not motivation. If you give them 3 tasks, let it be 3 tasks, and say, you're free to go. So if you're a list person, you need to really watch out that list, because it's always growing. It's never ending. There's always something else that has to be done. And your child will soon to realize there's no hurry for me to do the task, because if I hurry up, there'll just be something else to do.
conclusion, what is cooperation? We all want it. It is a willingness to work together to accomplish a task. It's responding to instruction with a good attitude, a good response. It doesn't have to be a hip hip hooray, I was so hoping you asked me to do that. But neither is it a grumbling, complaining, disrespectful response. And probably most importantly, it's giving up your own agenda for the needs of others. That old bathroom thing.
So just a little bit of review. Parent gets what to the child? Pardon?
Direct instructions.
Parent gets close to the child. The child responds by learn to come when called. Consider the time. Always be, for the child, always be ready to receive an instruction. Then, for the parent, give the instruction. Then the child answers. Then, parent waits expectantly. And then the child do the job as if on a mission. The child reports back. And then the parent inspects and releases. So what we want you to do is this. It will take practice, 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 and don't give up.
Now you might think that this is a long process, but this whole process that we went through can be really condensed. It can be, tell me your name again. Hallie? Hallie. Hallie, I hear the trash truck up at the top of the street. You need to get the trash out now. Okay, Mom?
I hear you.
Out, yeah. And you do it, I come back, I say, oh, good, you made it, thank you so much. Go back to what you were doing, okay? So just that fact, you kind of condensed it all down. I got close, I got a response, she did it, I inspect, and it doesn't mean I have to go and inspect everything. Ah, you made it, it can be actually a good thing. Ah, look at you did it. I knew you could. Okay?
And for parents, as parents, you're probably more aware that you could do all 5 things. But for your child, this might be a little bit overwhelming. And thinking, perhaps my child needs to give more of a affirmative answer. We'll worry about the other steps later on, but right now let's just worry about this one step for the child. If he has ADHD or some other diagnosis, is the fact that let's work on these steps one at a time. And start incorporating until the child actually becomes masterful at what they're doing. They want to see be masterful. So don't give up, practice it, and institute it what you think the child can handle. As older children, they can handle more. Younger children, perhaps one step at a time. So one thing we want to do is what we did last night. What's one thing I'm going to work on? What's one thing I found profitable from this morning about the instruction routine? Because we think this is a way to increase the cooperation between you and your child. Now, when you're writing, Tristan, just because he was preemie and I took care of him as a baby, he and I have always had a special relationship. I can ask Tristan to do anything, he'll do it for me. He always has. If Grandpa's out doing something, he's out there with me. He helped me, we used to have property at the beach and build a wall. At age 3 or 4, he was out there with me building this wall. And so he's my favorite one. As far as getting things done. If I want...
As far as getting something done and doing
Yeah. The other ones are not quite as cooperative. And so I know the struggle that parents have about not cooperative grandchildren. Okay? But Tristan is the one that will all sit there, hey Tristan, I need a lawnmower. Okay, Grandpa. And he's not doing it. The other ones, why? Because the grass is tall, my legs in a cast. Okay? Did she see this big cast on my leg? That's why I can't mow it.
a funny story about, maybe 4 or 5 years ago. It was springtime, and I was planting some peas in the garden, and I just thought, this would be fun for the kids to help with, and so I invited Caden to come, maybe just the two of them were there, and planting, and then I said, Tristan, you wanna come help me plant some peas? Okay, and so he did some, and then I said, okay, I'm making another row. He says, Grandma, I can't do another row. He says, I'm carrying rocks for Papa, and I need to go back and finish that. That's what he's got. Yeah, this pea planting's fun, but I've got a job to do.
Okay, what are some of the observations? What are some of the things you like to implement in your family life? Some things that you learned.
I have a reinforcement. I knew I have to go to my kids because I'm lazy.
Okay.
They're downstairs and behind the closed door, all the teenagers.
Yeah.
Always behind the closed door. And I just holler in front of them all the time. Because I don't want to be bothered all the time.
Yeah.
So that's something I already knew, but it's good reinforcement. But I like the character traits.
Okay.
Every time, because that's
And we'll talk more about character traits later on, when we get to the positive conclusion in the last session. Somebody else, something they've learned.
I like the inspect and release, and I am a list person, so I think that's a really good point, is to not, once they've done their jobs, then add more jobs, but to let them just go back to blank.
Okay.
That's helpful for me.
Yep.
Actually, mine was kind of the same one, but I highlighted the praise, because I kind of just expect things to be done, so, that's great, but I don't actually, words are like apples, words are like a honeycomb.
Yep.
So
Are you the
praise.
primary cook in your home?
Am I the what?
Primary cook.
Yes.
Do you just think that the rest of them should take it for granted, or do you think that they should praise you once in a while?
I think they should say thank you for the dinner every day.
Guess what? Our kids would like the same thing. They would like to praise as well for what they do. Okay?
I said give more gentle encouragement when things are done incorrectly. Maybe show how to break down the steps to make it easier in the process.
Okay. In fact, this Pete I talked about and his girls, we had the girls write up a list for the father, and the father was to write up one for the daughters.
Of these steps.
And of these 5 steps for each. And they hung it in their house until they mastered it. And so that's one of the ways they did. They could make these things any way they wanted to. But this is what they had to do for the dad. Dad, you need to do this. Girls, you need to do this. Okay? So there's many ways you can implement this. You can draw pictures. You can do all sorts of things. But be creative. Anyone? One more. Does anybody else have one more? Yes.
I find my expectation of my child higher than expectation of myself. So, that I'm like, something to reduce is not put too much pressure. And then realizing, like when you said, oh, what do you do when nobody's watching? Like, how do you manage that? Basically is realizing that I'm as a parent still working through so many issues in myself that putting it on the child, because you're catching up on the time that you missed or maybe you didn't learn what you're supposed to learn when you were a child, right? So like feeling like you don't have enough time to help a child. It's like reducing that pressure and anxiety and not put too much on the child.
And it's one of the troubles we face as parents when our kids turn out better than what we did.
Well, they are.
So therefore, we place higher demands upon them, realizing maybe I should learn some leadership skills. A leader should always be willing to do what they ask someone else to do. Okay, it's one of those leadership skills. But great comments, and so we'll be asking comments after each one of the sessions. And at the end of the day, we'll ask you for evaluation where you can write down other comments as well. But it's a great opportunity. How do I implement this? And that's what we want this to be. Is not just something you hear, but we want you to write down and say, this is one thing I can actually do.
Yeah, one thing I know, even as an adult, if I've worked hard on something, one of it was just recently a little trifold thing to set up for our new church. And I worked hard on it, Steve wasn't there. I couldn't wait for him to get home to see what I had accomplished. And I know he's done the same thing. If he's worked, for several hours cleaning up the garage, what he wants more than anything is for me to come and see it and say, wow, this really looks nice, honey. Okay? So our kids, they want that. They really want that inspect and release. And and once they know you're going to be doing it, it raises their level of what they expect from themselves. That they want that because they know you're coming. They aren't going to be sloughing off. They know that someone's going to be coming to look. Now, we brought along some books. We are not going to sell books this weekend. You can find all these books on Amazon. We're going to be giving away some books, though, this weekend. But I just want to tell you about them so you can leave them up here. This is Parenting as Heart Work, and it's a study of the heart and how it relates to parenting. This is called Home Improvement, and it's a parenting book to read with your kids. It has stories in here and stuff about parenting and parent-child relationships. This one, someone got one of these last night. Okay? Good and angry.
We won't say what she said about the thing.
Experiencing frustration for character in you and your kids. On anger, and I believe this is the one, I jotted it down here. Yes, this one has the 5-step instruction routine in it as well. This one, ever seen that face? Okay, say goodbye to whining, complaining, and bad attitudes in you and your kids. You notice how they have a lot of you and your kids? This is actually a book about honor, even though you wouldn't maybe guess it because what's the answer to whining, complaining, and bad attitudes? It's honoring. And this one is
Oh, no, this one that we
Oh,
don't
this
have.
one I do not have. It's the Christian Parenting Handbook that has lots of different situations in it and some of their.
It's by topic, like anger,
yeah.
complaining, those type of
So
things.
if you're dealing with, it's not one where some of these others that you would read from.
So it's
front-
usually
front
each
to
chapter is
back.
about
Yeah.
2 or 3 pages long.
Yeah, they're short. So guys that don't particularly care to read might read this. And this one is called Motivate Your Child. It's developing internal motivation. And like we said here in the instruction routine about giving that clear instruction, you will not be giving those instructions to your kids every day. We want to develop internal motivation. They don't have to wait to be told, pick up your laundry, put it into the hamper. That we develop cues for them, such as, I realized I was doing this with my grandsons who are 14 and 12. When they came and they always take breakfast at our place and they each have a toothbrush and toothpick. I'll say, okay guys, go brush your teeth and let's get ready to start. Why am I telling them to brush their teeth? They're 12 and 14. Why don't I just say, hey, we're going to be starting in a few minutes. You know what to do. I don't have to be giving them every step along the way. And if your 13-year-old daughter knows that every Saturday or every Friday afternoon after school she needs to mow the lawn, you don't have to give her that instruction every time. That is developing that internal motivation. Okay,
So what happens now is I ran out of coffee. When I run out of coffee, it means it's time for a break. Okay? So Thursday I am, the shorter the sessions.
you want a number?
The less Thursday I am, the longer the sessions. But we're going to take about 10-minute breaks in the
No.
bathroom, take,
Number them off.
not yet,
Oh,
at the
not-
end of the day,
Oh, we're going to do them all at the end? Oh, I thought we were doing one after.
No.
Okay.
We'll give away books, but we'll do it at the end of the
Okay.
day. That entices them, if they get a book, they'll leave. And we don't want that.
I think that's a good
Okay?
idea.
Need to be internally motivated.
Yeah. So take a break, eat coffee. I guess there's some snacks up there. There's coffee up there. So if you need to have, use the bathroom, it's out around that corner, or go up on the stage and go that way. So we'll meet in about 8 minutes.
Okay.
Now, in this particular session, is one of the things that we are going to do is this is a combination of 2 sessions. And from last night, you found out there was some concern about time, what times it was going to start and what time it was going to end. So we combined something a little bit together. And I know they graciously gave us till 2:30, which we will try to be done before then. And I know the kids are expecting lunch, and some of you need to help your kids with lunch. And so we're going to go through some of this material quite quickly, but it's easy material to grasp. Like the instructional routine and the positive conclusion are perhaps the most 2 important sessions. These are simple and things that you probably have heard before somewhere else, and we're reinforcing what you've heard, except for perhaps the break. So first of all, give me that. Give it to her. Let's see. Okay. Give me that. I had it first. Give it to her, Michael. That's no fair. You didn't see what happened, and it's her fault. Don't argue with me. I'm not. You are. Look, I've had it with you both of you. I can't stand your petty fights. You're driving me crazy. Well, you don't have to yell at us. No matter how much parenting I do, I'm still an amateur. And sometimes that's exactly how we feel when we're parenting. As we go, especially into a new stage of parenting, of transition into life stages of our children, you always feel like an amateur.
Okay, so we talked about the instruction routine. We talked about this desired outcome, this perfect little family life now because everyone's following the instruction routine to the T. And everybody's happy, healthy, respectful. Well, no, that's not the way it always goes. We come to these bumps in life. When we were coming up here, Washington, we were coming up I-5, and we were getting really close to the border, and we knew we had the customs and immigration there that we had to go through. And we had kind of looking at the time, and they said, okay, just 5 minutes and you're through. Well, we get really close, and there's this big flashing light, detour ahead. And then everybody had to exit off of I-5. And we're going, what's the deal? There's a detour. And once we got off, we weren't sure, are we at the right place? Because we didn't see a whole lot of detour signs beyond that. And so we were kind of finding our way. Well, corrections to things are sometimes like those detours, and sometimes we are finding our way. But we have to remember that our goal is to get back on this road where we're going. That we don't make the detour its own goal. That's not our goal in life, is this correction detour. Our goal is to get back here. So parents and children actually usually have a pretty much the same idea of what they would like to see in their family life. We asked, we've done this several times, especially with teens. We've asked, what would you like to see different in your life, in your family life? Often it's the very same goals the parents would like to see. And it's like, okay, we're wanting the same thing here. How can we get there? And so sometimes it means this detour.
And I'll give you a small illustration. One time we were with a family, mother, father, and 3 girls. I asked them, what's one thing you think you can do as a family to change it? They wrote down their answer, and they're on different whiteboards, so I could see all their answers. I said, okay, in order for that to happen, what do you need to do? And they wrote down their answers. I said, now be more specific. What are you going to do? Make it very specific. They all put down, you need to spend more time as a family. They all wrote down they need to play board games together. And they all chose the game Sorry.
Sorry.
That's how specific the family actually knew what had to be done, but wasn't doing it. I said, looks like you need to have a game night and play Sorry. Okay? But 750 times in the Bible, the word heart is used. And the heart is used in extreme way. For instance, in Matthew 9:14, why do you entertain evil thoughts in your hearts? Christ talking to the multitudes. But then also, it's a fact, the other extreme. Love the Lord with all your heart. The extremes for heart are used in the Bible. In fact, Parrington's heart work goes through these 700, or categorizes these 750 times the word heart is used. But also we need to see that correction of discipline are the way to life. It's important for us to learn how to use the right type of correction with our children. And for the parent, the purposes of a man's or a child's heart are deep waters, but a man or parent of understanding draws them out. You as a parent are working with your child. You're trying to draw out what's going on in the heart. Someone was talking to me about their 7-year-old. How do I do this? Well, it's the parent's responsibility. How do I draw out what's really going on in our heart? Because what I see is one thing at work, and you're doing it exceedingly well, but I see at home you don't carry on the same type of motivation. And so it's our responsibility as a parent to seek out our child's heart, and there we're going to find the understanding to them.
Many of the corrective techniques that we employ as parents are actually harmful to the relationship with our child. Some of these are exploding like a volcano. Any of you there? Some of you are a bombshell. Incoming, take cover. Dad's upset. Mom's had it. And so often when we employ corrective measures, it is when we've just had it. We can't handle anymore. And that's when we take corrective action. Probably not the best time for us to be doing that. Another one, how many of you have read Chronicles of Narnia or know of that? You always know of always winter and never Christmas. That coldness, and I saw this with firsthand in a mother and daughter, where the daughter had done something, and mom says, "Get out of my face, go somewhere else. I don't want to ever speak to you again." And she just was that cold to her daughter. Okay, and the last one we have that we've talked about, old yeller. If you're a yeller, you know, that, and all of these have a hurtful part to that parent-child relationship. So we want to take a look here at changing a child's behavior. And I'm sure all of you have heard of behavior modification. And we're going to talk about that today, but we're going to talk about perhaps a better way, and that's having a change of heart rather than just modifying the behavior. So in behavior modification, we expect an immediate response. I told you to do it, you do it now. On the heart change, we focus on the process. It may not be an absolute immediate response, but we go through the time to let that child process in their heart that you are becoming this person. And we as adults, we're becoming. I want so badly to be a grandma of patience. I'm still working on becoming that. So I'm not there yet, but it's a process. The behavior modification focuses on the behavior. You will not stamp your foot when I say no. If you don't do it, you're going to be punished, and you learn not to do it because the punishment hurts so bad that you won't do it again. Okay? The heart change, again, focuses on the heart. What's going on in the heart. The behavior modification looks at the externals, what I see, how you look good to other people and to me. And the heart change focuses on a parent-child relationship. We're in this together. We talked last night about being your child's coach. Okay? We're working on this together. We're both becoming. And one thing behavior problems are symptoms, just symptoms of heart problems. So remember, we talked about this last night, that anger is a good tool for identifying problems, but very poor at solving problems. So good correction routine addresses the heart and not just behavior. So just like we talked about an instruction routine, we're now going to go through a correction routine.
Okay, over 9 times in Proverbs, the words, like we said before, hear, listen, are used. Therefore, we need to focus on words in the correction routine as a preference. And so once again, have you noticed that we're moving away from corporal punishment and a lot of those ideas and saying, how do I first start with my words? We're going to talk about other things later on, but for right now, I need to first start with words. And Jeremiah 35:17, this is God speaking. Again and again I sent to you all my servants the prophets to you, but you have not paid attention or listened. Is God expected his people to respond to his words? As the prophet spoke the words, God really expected them to respond to the words. Now we're going to talk about what happened when they didn't respond to the words later on. But his expectation is, I first of all want you to respond to my words so I don't have to go to the next step. This is an adult skill. It is both in our personal lives, whether it's a job, marriage, parenting, or whether it's at church, our spirituality. We need to listen to words and respond to words instead of correction, as we talk about later on.
So we want to make sure that we're working towards this adult skill by reminding our kids, you have a choice to make. Because life is all about making choices, choosing the right thing. As we talked about self-control, saying no to temptation and yes to the right course of action. That you have a choice to make. Can you respond to my words and my instruction I gave you? Or do we need to move on to some other correction? You have a choice. You can change it right here. So we're going to give them that choice.
The purpose of the break, which we're going to describe in a second, is to change the heart. And this is why we talk about heart change. Is too often we expect behavior change instead of what's happening within the heart. God is concerned about the heart. As man looks on the outward appearance, God looks on the heart. It's the fact that what is really going on inside our child? What really motivates them? And so we want to sit there and say the purpose of the break is opportunity for the child to be able to settle down and stop fighting. This is a famous picture out of the Chronicles of Narnia as they go to war. The witch against Aslan. And they're all charging. Well, in Jeremiah basically uses this illustration, but in Jeremiah 8:6, he talks about the unrepentant person is like a horse charging into battle. And sometimes you feel like that is your child. Is they are charging ahead and not having time to settle down and to be able to basically calm down. And one of the things that we desire is for you to realize, in correcting our children, they're really not going to respond well if they're upset. They will respond best if they're able to calm down first. So part of the break is allowing them to calm down. How do you do it? Sometimes, and one of the things that we do, is sit in the chair until you calm down. Or sit on the step. If we're out at a store, when they were younger, put your hand in the cart, and when you calm down, then we'll talk about it. Or if you're in a park, sit here on the bench, and when you calm down, we'll talk about it. But the first step is use words, and then realize I need to help the child calm down. And for a small child, it might be the fact that you get next to them and put them on your lap and say, we need to first of all calm down. and comfort them to know that the relationship is still there, but you're in the process of trying to help them calm down.
So, the second important thing, the first one is the purpose is that we get the child to calm down. Secondly, the child determines the time spent in the break. This is a little bit different than timeout. Anybody here use timeout with their kids sometimes? Usually they say it's 1 minute per age of your child is the timeout time. Those of you that have used timeout, have you ever had a 2-year-old come out of timeout the same attitude that they went into timeout? And sorry, and go back right to the same thing? Ever had a 5-year-old spend 5 minutes and come out just ready to go at it again? With a break, the child determines the length they spend there. They get to decide when they are ready to come out and talk about it, that they're calmed down, and they can talk with you, and they can say that they're ready to talk. Now, when we were brand new to this, Caden, who is now 12 and a half, he would probably say, 12 and a half was just 3. And we decided to work with him on this break idea. 3 years old. So I don't remember what he did, but we said he needed to take a break, and we explained the break process. And that he was going to sit on this step until he was ready to come out with a good attitude and talk about what had happened. Well, little Caden was sitting there on the step, kind of that face we saw. That was pretty much it. Sat there. So let him sit there the 3 minutes. 5 minutes went by. He's only 3. So I decided maybe I should go check on him just a little bit. So I said, Caden, are you ready? Okay, when you're ready, you just come tell Grandma you're ready. So 10 minutes go by, 11, 12. I decided I better go check again. 15, 20, 25. Go back and check again. 30, 35, 45. At 55 minutes, this little 3-year-old comes out, the sweetest little attitude. Grandma, I'm ready. What had happened in that time? He had had a change of heart. If I brought him out at 3 minutes, I would have short-circuited any correction that was wanted to do. Now, and if you set a time too long, maybe the child in 3 minutes has done that heart work and is ready. And if you make him sit there for 15 minutes, that can become frustrating to them. They're ready, and they know they're ready. Okay, so the child determines this time. And now, instead of being a timekeeper, a police officer, you are a parent or a grandparent desiring a change of heart in your child and a good relationship with them. If you're, I say this because we do this sometimes with in places that are not places of faith. I'd say if you're a person of faith, I assuming all of you here in this church probably are, use this time to ask the Holy Spirit to work in your child's life and to work in your own. Because probably through this, you've had some things come up in your own life. So the time that your child's taking a break, you can kind of take a break too. Do some talking to God. Make that your time that you talk to God about what's going on. Ask God for wisdom and how to handle this.
Okay, Claudia talked about when can they come off a break, and this is very important for us to understand. One is they can end the break when they realize what was wrong and repent. As I understand it, hey, I did this wrong. Grandma, I came up there, I talked back to you. That's wrong, and I'm sorry. Okay, and if a child has that understanding, now if they're younger, they may not understand what they did wrong. In fact, I mentioned last night I used to work as a chaplain part-time at a residential treatment program for wayward kids. And sometimes I knew why they were there. They were arrested by the police because they were involved in drugs, they were involved in prostitution, they were involved in a whole list of things, you know, robbery. And I said down there, oh, why are you here? I don't know. You have no idea. No. Why do you think the police arrested you? I don't know. And sometimes kids are clueless. What they did was wrong. But they can come out of a break when they realize what was wrong and repent of it, or when they're willing to come back and talk about it with a good attitude. Is either choice. What they can't do is come back with the same bad attitude. If they come back with the same bad attitude, you say, you know, I don't think that you're quite done yet. I don't think you really changed your heart. I think there's more things that you need to think about. And so you need to go back into a break. But if they sit there and say, you know, some kids will sit there, they're very sensitive to God, very sensitive to the Holy Spirit. Man, Grandma, I know what I did was wrong because God says this and I did just the opposite. I'm sorry, Grandma. Some of them can recognize that in 2 or 3 minutes. Even 30 seconds, they have a genuine change of heart. Other ones can be repeated, even to this day. Yes, who spends more time
Taking breaks.
and breaks. Peter. Yes, he can be that stubborn. Now, not an hour yet. At least it's shortened down to maybe 10 or 15 minutes.
Or shorter.
But he can be very, very stubborn. But when he comes out, he is the sweetest kid. And you know why you love him as a grandkid. Because he has a genuine heart for God. But it takes him time to process it. And so you've got to allow your child time to work through and allow the child to end the break when they do one of these 2 things.
I have to do a redemption story here for Kate. Yeah, I know, because we just told this really bad one. He was like 5 years old. All 4 of the grandkids were over at our house, all 4 of them playing outside, and I don't remember what happened, but he did something to somebody. And I called him in and had him take a break. And he sat back on our infamous step. And he was sitting there, and he comes out and he says, Grandma, I'm ready. And I went through some of the things we went through. And we're going to talk about this in the positive conclusion. But when I got all done, I said, I usually don't say this as part of the conclusion, but I think it's a good idea. But I said, well, is there anything you think you should do right now? And I thought he would say, yeah, I need to go out and apologize to my brother or cousin, whoever it was out there. But he said, I need to tell God I'm sorry. And I said, would you like to do it right now? And that little guy, we have a vaulted ceiling in our living room, his eyes looked up. Tears started streaming down the corners of his eyes. And his voice broke. And he said, God, I'm sorry. And I thought, what a genuine picture of confession and repentance that I thought, I need to learn from this. And so Kate, now 5 years old, taught Grandma some things. You know, so like Steve said, he truly has a heart for God. And I hadn't even thought about him telling God, so I was concerned about the cousin or brother outside that he had wronged.
And the child's motivation is to have a clear conscience and return to family life with a good attitude. And that's just the story that Claudia just shared, is the fact that he had a clear conscience. He wasn't overwhelmed with guilt. I've done something wrong. When is the hammer going to fall on top of me? He knew that he had a clear conscience, and he was ready to go back and play with the cousins with a good attitude.
Okay, so teaching children to take a break. And you might say, you know, your response was not a good response. You sounded very angry. you need to go take a break and think about this. So I want you to come over here and sit. And you're going to have to explain this at the beginning. Now the kids actually, if they're following the materials that we've had, are playing a little game with taking a break. And they're going to learn how to take a break. So a break is not a punishment. A break is a time to reflect on what just happened and go through some things in your mind and your heart. We as adults need to do a little more break taking with our spouses sometimes with our kids, that we need to also put these into action. Remember, the goal is heart change rather than just changing behavior. So what happens if they come back and they start repeating the same action? Well, you say, you know what? You just took a break, but I think you need to go back and think this through a little bit more. Go back and have some more break time. And, oh my goodness, the break gets inconvenient, guys. I won't kid you, it is. Most inopportune times you want to get on with stuff, and here you've got a kid in break. And you can't just set a timer for 5 minutes, okay, we're ready to go. Okay? I had a parent one time that had a child who was always misbehaving. Right before it was time to go to Awana, and they were leaders in Awana. And little Valerie always chose every week, that very same time, to do something she knew she shouldn't do. She was 7 years old and misbehaved, and she knew she couldn't get away with it because it was time to go to Awana. And I asked the parents, I said, what would you do if at that same time when she misbehaves, that Valerie had fallen and broken her arm? What would you do? They said, well, we would call Awana and say, hey, we got an emergency here. We aren't going to be able to make it. We probably won't make it for the whole night. I said, exactly. You will do that for a physical problem with your child. This is a heart problem. You need to put the same emphasis on that and say, hey, we've got a little emergency here at our house. We're going to be late to Awana. We aren't sure when we're going to get there. Can someone cover us until we do? Well, they did that once. After that, Valerie straightened up. They said it worked. They found out that she wasn't going to get away with that it was going to take place. Okay, so let's take a look now at timeout and a break and some of the differences between them. A timeout, the purpose is punishment. Timeout is a punishment. The break is a time for repentance and change of heart. It's a process for a child to go through. The focus of timeout is behavior. The focus of the break is the child's heart. The length of time, timeout is determined by the parent, timekeeper. The break is determined by the child when they're ready. The role in discipline, timeout is a consequence. And a break the break is part of the training process. We're giving them a tool that they can use into their adult life. They can take this break. The responsible party, parent has a responsibility for the child's re-entry into a family life. In the break, the child has a responsibility for making changes and returning. The attitude of parent, the timeout can create distance between the parent and child. And the break has an emphasis on the parent's desire for the child to return, just like the prodigal son's father. We're waiting for that child to return. It takes work to teach the break. You may have to guide them through it several times for them to get the idea. I think one of the main things is to be telling them this is not a punishment. This is to help you, and let them begin to see it as that. The break takes more parental involvement, but it's worth it because it's going to create a better relationship.
So how you take a break with a young child? 2, 5, that age range. How do you do it? Well, you need to, once again, practice a break outside of misbehavior. So, one of the things that we're going to start doing is taking a break. So when I say you need to take a break, this is what it's going to look like. And help your child just sit there and say, I'll use this chair. Sometime when I see you getting upset,
I see you stomping your feet, and I see you crossing your arms, I see you being mad. I said, when we take a break, I want you to be able to go over a chair and sit down and just start relaxing. It might be breathing deeper. It might be putting your arms down instead of cross. But learn to relax, to settle down. And practice that. Say, can you practice that now? Just like the little game, Come When You're Called. Is this a little experiment or practice you can have with your child? Is pretend like you're mad at me. Of course, they're going to laugh because they'll think it's funny. But just say, pretend like you're mad at me. Okay, I'm going to say, take a break. What you're going to do is then I'm going to ask you to go sit somewhere. It might be on a step, it might be a chair, it might be a sofa. It definitely won't be your room because I know what's in your room. Too many toys are there. Okay? So, I want you to go there and learn self-control. Oh, another characteristic trait. Learn self-control. And so, you may have to work with your child, and especially a 1.5, 2.5-year-old child. You may actually have to hold them to calm them down. If they fight you, probably not worth it. But if they find comfort saying, I can calm down with mom holding me or dad holding me, then it's worth it. Tristan, because he was a preemie, when he got upset as he was growing, I could calm him down faster than his parents. Just because we had a relationship. We had a different type of relationship. He would do anything for me, and he would calm down for me faster than anybody else. It's just the fact that when he was a preemie, I spent days with him, taking care of him, and he was this real tiny, tiny baby. So you explain to him what it looks like, what you want it to look like, and show it to them.
Okay, you may actually have a child that when they're angry, they follow you around. Still, you tell them, you need to go sit here. And here they come. They're following you in their anger. Well, they're having a little angry party, and they're issuing you an invitation. They want, it's no fun to be angry all by yourself. You need to have a party to make this. Don't accept that invitation. Say to your child, I'm not going to talk to you while you're angry. You can go take a break, and then we'll talk. But we're not going. And don't start arguing with them. Say, even give them that choice of when they're ready to go take a break. And just, you may have to remind a small child, Mom! No, I'm sorry. I can't hear you when you're doing that. You need to go take a break, and we'll talk when you're not so angry anymore. So don't accept that invitation from a child who's trying to, I hate using this word because it's so overused, but bully. Bully you as a parent around by thinking they can yell and scream and they can make you do what they want. So.
For older children, what helps you to calm down when you're upset?
Deep breathing, I go outside and take a deep breath.
Take a deep breath. Okay.
I think somebody said space.
Space. Okay, space. I would say I'm really old up here, but someone's old up here that's older than me, so I can't say that. Is we all have techniques for calming down. Your kids, older kids teenagers, have a way to calm down as well. And sometimes you have to sit there and respect how they calm down. And so sometimes they like to write. Sometimes they like to draw. Sometimes they like to go for a walk. I had one parent who says, what do I do? She always wants to walk outside the house to calm down. I said, let her. I said, you live 10 miles from civilization. Okay? 2 miles from even the nearest road. Your driveway is 2 miles long. I doubt if she's really going to go anywhere. If she says she needs to go for a walk, we're going to go for a walk. Set a time limit. She's not in control. Yes, you have 20 minutes to go for a walk. Be back here in 20 minutes, and here's a walk, so make sure you're back. Okay? For me, my reflective time is mowing lawns. I like mowing lawns, especially on the right lawnmower. Is our church used to have, 7 acres. Church I was at, they used to have a ball field. And I'd love to go out there in the ball field, just mow the ball field. Just to relax, to calm down, not have to think about ministry for a while. Just sort of space out and just go back and forth on this field. But sometimes you have to sit there and say, what will help my older child to calm down? And ask them. You might ask them sometimes. Sometimes I notice that you're really upset. And I'm going to try to help you to try to calm down. So what do you think helps you most? And if it's reasonable, let them do it. I find it reasonable for me to do this. Now, for an introvert person, they'll say, send me to my room. Well, that's sort of like send them to heaven. Because they're by themselves and, I don't have to deal with mom, dad, brothers, sisters. I don't deal with anybody. I can just sit here in my quiet zone and just chill out. Well, I don't know if that's the best thing for an introvert. And I don't know if you have a child who has all sorts of things in their room. But if you have a person that has things in their room, so they're like, maybe their room is not the best thing to do. Because there's games, there's TV, there's this, there's that. You got to find someplace that's workable. Okay? Now, I noticed, just observation. Somebody's way to calm down. I won't say calm down. I noticed someone way to stay relaxed is what? Here in this group.
Or maybe she's trying to meet a deadline. Yes.
Yes. A lot of people sit there and say, hey, I like to crochet. This is what I like to do. It keeps me focused, keeps me. Think of what helps your older kid out. Don't sit there and say, take a break and sit in this chair. Well, that may not be counterproductive. It might be something else.
So it's okay for them to sit in box, my oldest child, whenever I tell her to take a break, she always is drawing.
Yeah.
She's happy.
Yeah.
And what to do is sometimes give her, say, you do fantastic artwork. Draw me a picture about what you think self-control looks like. Or draw me a picture of what you think patience looks like. Sometimes you give them instruction to point them towards a character trait while they're drawing. But yes, use what they like to do as they get older. Because at age 18, you know what happens? You have zero control of your kids. I think it's 18 in Canada too, right? What's that earlier?
No, it's 18.
18. You have no control. You can't tell your kid what to do at 18 unless you get in trouble with authorities.
And I think if your child or teen has discovered on their own something that really helps them to refocus themselves and change their attitude, praise them for that. Say, you know what, you've discovered something that a lot of even adults haven't really discovered, is you've discovered what helps you to calm down and change your attitude, and that's your drawing. And I'm so proud of you because you're only 6 years old, and you figured that out. That's amazing. How next time she's starting to get upset, what's she going to be thinking? I want to draw because that's going to help me. It reinforces that in her brain of, why am I doing this? Because I want to calm down and refocus. Okay.
Okay, wait a second. Use the voice appeal. We talked about this last night, and if you were not here last night, this is out of Daniel chapter 1. But how to give older teens a voice when they don't agree with you? Because we want them to teach the skill of negotiation, way to express himself in a respectful way. And it's out of Daniel chapter 1. Is I understand you want me to, and for Daniel is the fact that I understand you want me to eat the king's food. 2, I have a problem or I have a concern with that because, And for Daniel is, I have a concern for that because it's against my religious beliefs. And then present an alternative. So could I please, and for Daniel, could I please eat vegetables for the next number of days? And then you decide if I'm healthy or not. And so, but our kids oftentimes feel like they don't have a way to express themselves in a respectful way. And this is a way that Daniel could go to a foreign leader who is responsible for basically his education, who had the authority to kill him if he wanted to, but was able to do it in a respectful way so that the person granted him his request to eat vegetables. And of course, God allowed him to be healthier. But too often our kids feel like they're trapped. And that's part of their frustration or anger. They don't listen to me, or I don't have a way to express myself.
Okay, so this is really a major change from what we knew as timeout. And I really want to make sure that you get a handle on this in your brain, that this is not just another word for timeout. It has a totally different purpose, a totally different outcome, hopefully, than a timeout. I had a parent ask and say, well, you know, we've been using timeout, so can't we just change what we do with it and still call it timeout? I said, I would not suggest that, because your child already has in their brain, whether they're even 2 years old, what timeout is. They've already seen timeout is punishment. So we don't want to just change the way we as parents implement this for the same old word. So let's give it a new word. Give it the word break, that we're taking a break, because we have some work to do here. Okay, so
This is such an important area. We want to ask, is there any questions or clarifications we need to make on the break? Because we really think that this is an important difference between break and timeout.
I'm just wondering if I can apply it to my own life. I have a 12-year-old, so he's kind of like, I have a history, but this is what I'm thinking of. He's not quite that teen where you want to just maybe let them do whatever, and he's not quite that child that, so I'm just wondering, like, if he's, and I homeschool, so if I'm doing math with him and he's losing it because it's frustrating or whatever, just, and then I said to him before, like, I think we should take a break, right? Not having this full framework. But then he'll just say, no, like, and he'll want to keep going. So what kind of, how would you navigate for a child that's in between those two age groups, and when there's some resistance to taking a break?
we have a grandson also who just really wants to plow through. I don't care. I just want to get this done. So I can see your son in this. And I think maybe preface it with some things of say, I kind of sense you're getting really frustrated with this. Can we just take a moment here and talk about what you find frustrating about this? And I don't remember, I talked to somebody about a math program, but I have to tell you, I forgot to tell her, there's one caution about it though, because we have one grandson, because the computer, when you're doing online math, it won't let you erase. You enter your answer, you either got it right or you got it wrong, and you can't say, I didn't mean to do that. And he would find that frustrating, because he would see his score go from 100% on this lesson down to 90, because there's only 10 questions, and he's going, no! and so I think maybe is instead of saying taking a break, and say, hey, we're getting kind of frustrated here, you and me both. Let's talk about it just for a moment.
And another thing, once again, going back to character traits, which we'll talk about in the positive inclusion, is say, I really appreciate your perseverance. Because that really helps sometimes to get through difficult things in life. It's going to be a job, it's going to be a marriage, it's going to be kids. But perseverance is a really important skill to learn, and you're learning it. And you realize that you're hitting a wall with this math problem, but you still want to continue. So do you want to continue, or do you want to just back off a little bit? And so I think you can commend him for recognizing the concept of perseverance, and remind him that that's a character trait that he needs in life. Okay? So any other questions on the break?
I just was wondering if you guys would say that timeout is something that shouldn't ever be implemented, or if it's still good to implement
Last one, no, is I don't think that timeout has too many preconceived thoughts with it. Okay, both with kids and adults. Okay, it's sort of like grounding. Everybody has sort of a preconceived idea. Okay, I think using the break gives the fact that I've learned something different that may be a better way to explain what we want. Because the purpose of break is to calm down and change the heart. Timeout is strictly, I'm being punished for a certain period of time for what I did. I may or may not change my heart. I may have to say I'm sorry, but I don't need to really mean it. I'm sorry and go on. That was a problem with Super Nanny. It was always the fact that it was just a simple, say you're sorry, I'm sorry. Okay, so I would say, first of all, the second question, I think I'd rather use the terminology break rather than timeout and stick with the concept of break and what it means.
But
And your first question?
My question was like, do you use both? Like you have a place where you're gonna take a break, and then you also have a time when you're like, okay, you're actually gonna have a timeout because you just slapped your sister across the face.
And you may want to use a different word even than timeout, so they don't get confused of sitting apart as being a break. But we're going to talk about this right now, but as we're coming up to what we call a toolbox of consequences. And you would be using that as a consequence. And it basically is the one that we will call in our consequences restricting freedom. So you would be using your timeout as a freedom restriction.
Yeah.
You are confined to a place for a time, it's a restricted freedom.
Yeah.
So yes, I think there is a place for that. And say, but maybe not using timeout and not using it in the same way, but say, since you have not responded to the break, which I think even hitting a sibling or somebody else can be, you need to go take a break. And we'll talk about in the positive conclusion how that all works out after the break. It's not just a simple, I'm sorry.
But I mean, if their break is going to withdraw, it's like, okay, I slapped my sister, now I get to withdraw.
Oh.
Like, is it really?
Okay. Oh, I see your
You know what I
point. She
mean?
wants
Like
to
a
draw.
consequence for
Okay,
doing something
and
really
say,
wrong.
and you may say, and this break, you will not be able to draw. You need to just go and think through.
Right.
Okay. Yes.
What if your child's way of relaxing is an escape, like my 9-year-old reads, but that wouldn't provide opportunity for thinking about what just happened, or
I would sit there and say, yeah, you can read, here's a book. Here's a book I want you to read. Well, it may be a Bible, it might be some Bible verses, or it might be a book on whatever. It might be on anger, it might be on self-control, it could be something. Because to say, you can read, but I could choose the book.
Actually, our son came up with an idea, and we expanded it a little bit. You might try this in your family. We've just kind of started it, is we made envelopes for everybody, little pieces of paper. And you wrote on there, I haven't even read mine, what's in mine, but something I like about you. I like the way you play football. I like that you are this way. I like that you play games with me. I like that you, whatever. But you write something, and they had to write two and put them in the envelopes, and we all did that. So we've got a collection of these in this envelope. And one time, Caden, for his break, I told him, go get your envelope, and I want you to read through those. So that might be a reading assignment, because sometimes kids can get kind of down on themselves. And this is a way of finding out, oh, my goodness, there's some things in here I didn't know. And that may help them to do that calming down and coming back. I didn't think about it until you said about reading.
Okay, so, yes.
I have one more question. What about a child that does not want to take the break? Because once they're frustrated, then they're angry, and they're not particularly open to direction at that point. You want them to.
And then you say, I'm sorry, I'm not going to interact with you while you're angry. You need to take a break and calm down. And when you can calm down and have good attitude, talk to me with a good attitude, we'll talk it through.
One time, we had a person in our church, there, I don't know how old she was, but Sierra did something to Claudia prior to starting church. They said, Sierra, you're on break. You sit here. As people came in, and everybody understood what break was, they just said, Sierra's in a break, don't talk to her. And so Sarah sat there in the pew by herself, and everybody knew, don't talk to her. Before the service started, she walked over to Claudia and apologized. That's how effective the break can be, even in a public setting, is allow the child to work it through and to have that change of heart. And she was fine for the rest of the day, but she was one. Now, one of the things that we have is, we have 4 sessions that we're condensing down to 3. So we're going to start on the toolbox of consequences. So I know that I said at 12:35 we were going to actually start taking a break, lunchtime, till 1 o'clock. But we're going to introduce this just because I hope that the speakers, is the speaker on? If the speaker's not on, we're just going to be, you know.
Okay, so the break is that we use words. We start with words first. If the child responds to our words, we don't need a break or anything else. We've accomplished what God calls us to do, is to use words and respond to words. But then the purpose of the break is to change the heart. The child determines the length of the break. It ends with repentance or being ready to talk about it with a good attitude. And for motivation to come out of the break is to return to family with a clear conscience. And I have to tell you, I as a grandmother sometimes have been very guilty of doing some very special things when someone's in break. As an enticement to come out of break. That may be when we decide to have ice cream. I'm guilty of that.
So one of the things that we're going to do is talk about the toolbox of consequences. Because too often we get into the pattern of doing the same thing over and over and over again, and becomes less and less effective. And whether it's timeout, whether it's grounding, whether it is some other way of doing things. And what I'm doing is skip ahead a few slides just to introduce it so we can go ahead for lunch. But we'll see, hopefully the video's on.
Excuse me, Granny, I'm going to the store. Is there anything you need?
I'll check my supplies while you string these beans.
That's women's work.
What'd you say?
I said stringing beans is women's work.
It's anybody's work. I tell them to do it.
No, I ain't going to do it.
Jethro, that's the first time you've ever talked back to Granny, and it's the last. Now you go out and cut me a hickory switch and meet me in the woodshed.
I ain't got no hickory tree. No woodshed needed.
That's the truth, ain't it?
Yeah. Hey, now what'd you want to go and do that for?
Do you want to string beans or do you want to stand up for your meals for the next few days?
I want to string beans. Howdy, Granny.
Jethro, finish the sweeping. I gotta go someplace.
No, ma'am, Granny.
What?
Sweeping is women's work.
You go cut me a hickory switch and you wait for me.
Granny, I told you before, there ain't no hickory switches, no woodsheds in Beverly Hills.
No wonder they have to have policemen to watch the young'uns.
I ain't gonna bite on that one again. I'm too smart. Yes, ma'am, Granny. Uncle Jed says it's because I go to school.
Oh, you're much too smart for a poor old woman that ain't had no schooling or nothing.
Yeah.
That'll be the day when you can outsmart your own granny.
Is sometimes our toolbox of consequences is basically predictable. And then it's the fact of how can we outsmart each other. And it happens to kids, whether it's grounding, whether it's timeout, how can we outsmart each other? And so we're going to be talking about a toolbox of consequences. It's going to be brief as far as the 8 different tools that we have. 7 of them are in your book. The 8th one is mine. I will claim it.
You get a bonus.
Yeah. And so what we want to do is, I said 12:35 would be ready for lunch. So I want to honor those kids downstairs that are probably hungry. I heard that some need help or have things from their parents for they're down there. So let's take a break till 1 o'clock. And I have no idea about lunch. But apparently somebody does. And hopefully they're downstairs. If not, guess what? You're going to have to go to 2 o'clock or 2:30 for your lunch. What your kids are going to eat, maybe you could ask them for a morsel of their plate.
And there are cookies up here though, I
Yeah.
saw.
So anyways, we'll take a break till 1 o'clock just so we can take care of lunch. And then from about 1 to about 2:15 or 2:30, we will finish up toolbox of consequences and then go into positive conclusion, which is short but very powerful.
We're going to start out this afternoon talking about the difference between a threat and a warning. And threat is a common term that you might hear sometimes is idle threat, and that's what we often give our kids. It's all bark, no bite. If you don't pick these up, I'm taking all your toys away. Like you're really going to do that. If you don't get your shoes on now, I'm leaving without you. Yeah, like you're really going to do that. I'm 3 years old. You aren't going to leave me here by myself. You know, okay. What a warning is, it restates the instruction and previews the consequences. It's no bark. You don't have to be losing your cool about it, but it's all bite. Saying, you know what you're supposed to be doing. If you can't do that or choose not to do that, then this is what's going to happen. That's a warning. So a difference between a threat and a warning.
Now, in the Old Testament, we talked about this earlier, is the fact that God wanted Israel to listen to the words of the prophets. In Jeremiah 35, where he says, I sent you my prophets, but you did not listen. Well, even God had a problem with Israel. What do you do when your children don't respond to words? We talked about starting with words. We talked about in the break using words. But now is the fact that we are now looking at Deuteronomy chapter 28. There's a minimum of 15 to 20 types of disciplines or corrections for Israel if they do not listen to God's words. It could be famine. It could be being childless. It could be wars. It could ultimately end up in captivity. But as you read Deuteronomy chapter 28, it says, if you do not obey me, this is what I could do. And he lists all these various types of consequences. And so today we want to very briefly go through various types of consequences when people don't respond to words either through the instruction routine or the correction routine.
So starting on page 18, the first consequence we're going to talk about is natural consequences. You pull the cat's tail and she scratches you. Natural consequence. You don't put your dirty clothes to the laundry. You don't have any clothes to wear. You can wear dirty ones. Natural consequence. Here in my arms is somebody very special to me. This is Holly. Next month, Holly will become 60 years old, almost old enough to retire. She was my doll. And I got her, I was 9 years old. And we had in our house, a farmhouse, we had a room that we called the playroom. Now the playroom was between our parents' bedroom and the downstairs bathroom. And then my parents had a little walk-through closet that had a curtain hanging up there, and there's a little passageway. But during the night, if my parents needed to go to the restroom, they had to pass through the playroom to get to the bathroom. And one of the rules that we had in our house was that you picked up your toys off the floor of the playroom. We had some wooden shelves there. They needed to go there. Well, one morning I got up and Holly was sitting out in the dining room, sitting on the table. Beside Holly were fingers. We were not a wealthy family. There would not be another Christmas dollar. There were 7 kids in our family. We were a farm family. I had not picked up Holly off the floor. She was laying on the floor, and my dad came through and stepped on Holly's hand, and her fingers broke off. This is a natural consequence. Now, how could my parents respond to that? They could have said, we're sorry, we'll get you a new dolly. Rescue me from what we've done. Staying up late to finish the school project for your child so they can turn it in. You can rescue them. Secondly, they could have gotten angry. I told you to pick up that doll. Now look what's happened. You didn't pick her up. They could become angry with me. Or there could be just reminders. I told you so. I told you this would happen. We often do that with our kids. Or sarcasm. Oh, well, I'm just so sorry that happened. And this is one of the things, I don't know if you are acquainted with Love and Logic. You've heard of that? And this is one of my major problems that I have with it. It has some really good points. They lean heavily on natural consequences. But they have this saying that's almost sarcastic, and I've heard parents say this when something happens to kid. Oh, what a bummer. It's almost a sarcastic response, but I remember at 9 years old, I remember my dad and my mom were genuinely sorry that this happened to my doll. They truly were, even though it was my fault. I did it. So, what you can do is, possible responses is, oh, you really have a problem here, don't you? What are you going to do about it? I've got this project that's due tomorrow. What are you going to do about it? That's a problem. And then maybe, can we brainstorm together to come up with a solution to this logical, or not logical, natural consequence?
Okay, briefly, if natural consequences don't work, there's logical consequences. Sometimes you can see something transpiring that's going to be more costly, and therefore you want to set up a logical consequence. For instance, my brother got a bicycle for Christmas when, I don't know what age he was, but my dad told him to lock it up. Well, he didn't, and that night it was stolen. And once again, we were not a wealthy family, so there was not going to be another bicycle. That was a costly consequence. What could have happened was, I see your bicycle is not locked up. You can't ride your bicycle for the next week. But every night I want you to go out to the front yard, look around, go to the backyard, see where the bicycle is locked up at, and then come and report to me that the bicycle's locked up. And you'll do that for 7 nights straight. A logical consequence saying, I don't want your bicycle to be stolen, but I want you to have some type of consequence as a result of your lack of locking it up. And sometimes when you do consequences, you gotta sit there and think, how can the child get it back sooner? Okay, if I see you every night doing it, and you do it voluntarily, and you take on that responsibility to do it every single night at 8 o'clock, and come back and report to me, you can have it on Thursday instead of Saturday. So think of ways for them to work back of a logical conclusion, as well as some of the other things that we'll be talking about. How can they earn back what you have either taken away or have made as a logical consequence?
The third tool that you have in your toolbox to use is restricting freedoms. This could be restricting of possessions, like we did the bicycle. We take it away. We take away a toy. You're going to fight about it. Oh, my mother did this so often. You're going to fight about it. Nobody gets it. It gets put away. And she said, and invariably, especially me and my next oldest brother, would invariably say, oh, he can have it. I really didn't want it anyway. Or she can have it. I didn't want it anyway. You know, my mom told me that that's what we used to do. Okay, restrict connections, friends. This, for our daughter, was probably the most effective correction tool that we had, because she was such a social person that if we said, okay, you can't go out front of the house to play with friends, it was like she was crushed. She's going straight. She could still go out and play in the backyard by herself and do anything she wanted. She just couldn't go out front and play with friends. And maybe your child is like that. And of course, for a very introverted child, that means nothing to them. Restricting activities, perhaps sports, perhaps some other activity that your child likes to do. However, let me caution you here, never, ever, 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 ever use youth group, church, other activities that can be a very positive influence into your child's life. I don't know of how many parents I've heard, well, my child couldn't go to youth group tonight because I grounded him. Okay. Maybe that's the one thing that could help him turn things around, you know, so be careful of that. Restrict movement, and that would be the grounding. So if they're restricted, or if they've had something taken away, that possession, how can they earn it back? Just 2 weeks ago, Caden again, he likes playing with Beyblades. Anybody know Beyblades? They're like the newfangled tops, only you battle them. Okay, so he was leaving on a Friday, and I told him, reminded Caden, your Beyblades are out. They need to be put away, because they actually do leave Papa and Grandma's house. And he wasn't responding, and I gave him a warning. I said, Caden, if the Beyblades are not put away, then you won't have them for a week. Well, his response was, well, can I take them home? I said, no. And I said, no. But he still chose not to put them away. So back the Beyblades were put away. And I told him on Monday, I said, Caden, I know I took the Beyblades away. I said, but if you can show very respectful responses when you're asked to do things for 2 days in a row, you can have your Beyblades back early. Sounded pretty good to him. But you know what he did? He had Legos. You know what he made during that time? And he showed them to me, and then he showed them to his dad. He made Beyblades out of his Legos, and they actually work. He could do it, and they... So necessity is the mother of invention. So he actually made Beyblades out of Legos. Okay, so think of a way that you can get your child back, and probably with something that has to do with their responses, with their attitudes, with their treatment of other people that they're having trouble with, that this is a way you can earn back. That's been taken away.
Okay, more parental control. Sometimes our kids fail over and over at the same task. It might be school. They're really struggling in school. And somehow they're just struggling and just seem not to get a handle on it. It might be a time where you need to intervene as a parent and say, what do we need to do? Do I need to go talk to the teacher? Do I need to go talk to, who do I need to talk to help my child out? It may be the fact that the child feels like they are a failure. They have no friends. And this is one thing our daughters, because we homeschool the kids. My kids don't have that many friends. Well, we said there's several things that you could do as a parent. You could invite people over to your house. That would imply that you'd have to clean your house, but you'd have to invite people over to your house. Is how do I get more involved in the life of my child? You have to see your kid as sort of like Jello. And there comes a time in their life they just seem to have no direction or shape. Well, you're in the Jello mode. And the mold shapes that jello until it's firm enough to be by itself. Yes, still a little wiggly. It's not perfect yet. But you stepped in and say, okay, let's get a handle on this. And so you have to look at your child and say, what can I do to be born about my child's life at this particular juncture about this particular problem?
Tool number 5 is spanking, and I'm going to be very careful here in talking about spanking, and I bring it up because it is in this workbook. So, you know, spanking is usually a divisive kind of thing with parenting. Back when I was growing up, spanking was the hammer in the toolbox. And if all you have in your toolbox is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. You use it for everything, that hammer. Spanking was the go-to. It was the silver bullet. And other parents say, absolutely never, ever, 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 ever spank. That it leads to violence. Well, probably somewhere right in the middle, there's some place for it. Susanna Wesley was the mother of John Wesley and Charles Wesley, the great theologians and songwriters. And she had 23 children. I was thinking 21 living children. But anyway, a couple of things. I read a biography of hers. And one thing, she did spank her children. And this was when our own kids were very young. But she gave rules to her kids before she spanked them. She told her child, you will cry, but you will cry softly. Because she believed that loud wailing was just more sign of rebellion. So she put that restriction on her children before she spanked them, that you will cry, but you will cry softly. And our own kids were like 6 and 7, maybe when I heard that. And we had something, and I decided, well, I'm going to try that with this kid. Okay? And so I told, you know, you're going to get a spanking and you will cry softly. And I was there with him, spanked, and immediately that child turned around and put his or her, I don't remember which one it was, arms around me to hug me. Susanna Wesley had great insight apparently into parenting because that was the response. So a few days later, I had opportunity with the other child. I thought, well, let me try this with the other one. And exactly the same response. And I thought, oh my goodness, we're talking a heart change. We're talking that you stopped the rebellion, you did get a punishment, but they wanted that relationship. And so I thought that's really interesting. 3 particular times never to spank. If you have anger and control issues, don't be spanking. If it's not working, don't spank. And if they're not your children, don't be spanking. So if it's an anger, then you can easily misuse the spanking and harm the heart of the child. So don't use it. And I think Steve looked up before he came here, I think in Canada, that you can't spank except through the ages of 2 to 12. Mm-hmm. So also I wouldn't think you would be spanking beyond 12 or probably 2 anyway. But if you use spanking, use it with the same goal. This is to enhance our relationship, not hurt.
And one thing that's going to come up, spare the rod, spoil the child. 5 times physical discipline is talked about in the book of Proverbs. 3 of them are towards adults. Only 2 are referenced to children. So personally what I do is now take a 2x4 and use it against adults and see if that helps them out. Okay? Okay, next one, toolbox, is other leaders and authorities. Your children have all sorts of authorities in their life as they start to emerge. Coaches, pastors, youth pastors, Sunday school teachers, you name a whole list of people that are in the child's life. Perhaps a therapist is in there as well. But one of the things was, how do we use these people as a help to my child? And oftentimes I have designate myself as an authority to kids. And one time, Claudia and I were cheerleader coaches, believe it or not, back when our daughter was in high school. We had one girl that was Robin. She was very quick in responding, but never knew what to do. She could respond to what other people are doing, but she herself could not do it. We had a big homecoming show for basketball coming up. Claudia wasn't there, but I was. I said, Robin, go out there and do it.
The routine.
And she goes out there, and I knew she would fall up within seconds. She goes running off, and all the rest of the cheerleaders go running off. They all have this good cry session, how mean this Coach Steve was. And so I went over there, finally I said, okay, rest of the girls, you go out there in the gym. I sat there on the stage with Robin. I said, Robin, I want you to be embarrassed in front of your other 6 close friends. I don't want you to be embarrassed in front of hundreds of people on Friday night. You've got 4 days to learn this routine, and I know you can do it. Friday night came. She performed the routine perfectly. She came off the court, gave me this big hug, and she says, I did it. I didn't make a mistake. Why? An authority figure told her she could do it. And forced her to. Later on, her dad says you're the first one in her life that forced her to do something she didn't want to do. Our son Richard, one time he was supposed to go. Huh?
Grandson.
Grandson, Richard the Fourth. He said he was going to go to martial arts. He told his mom, because he has either Tuesday or Wednesday to go martial arts. He told his mom on Tuesday, I'll go Wednesday. Came Wednesday, and he's at our house, which was a mistake for him. I said, Richard, it's time to go to martial arts. No, I'm not going to go. I said, you said you were going to go. You told your mom you're going on Wednesday. It said Tuesday. Well, I was just lying. Wrong thing to say to me. I said, well, Richard, you are going to go. Either you put your outfit in and go and be a participant, or you go talk to Master Mason. He says, well, I'll talk to Master Mason. Mistake number 2. Master Mason gave him a big lecture about integrity and keeping your word. We never had another problem with that. You keep your word. So use other authorities in your kid's life as a resource.
Okay, tool number 7. Practice doing the right thing. And you think, oh, well, that doesn't really sound like a punishment. And it's truly maybe not a punishment, but it's a corrective tool. And I want you to see these as being corrective tools that you can use. It's a consequence because it's sign that they would probably rather be doing something else. And they're practicing doing the right thing. For example, you have a child who has done something mean to her sister. You might have for the consequence saying, okay, before dinner, you need to do 3 kind things for your sister that she thinks will be kind. You need to figure out 3 things you can do for your sister that's very kind before dinner. You're practicing doing the right thing. Because you were mean to her, you're going to practice being kind. The flip side of what you're doing wrong. And I urge you to use this also sometimes not in connection with correction. This practicing doing kind things. This was Caden again. he's such a treasure trove of illustrations because he is so open with everything and just so many things come out of it. Back in the toy room there was a TV and he was watching TV and I called for him to come and we were going to go do something. And he didn't. He was watching TV. So I made my way up to the toy room and I said, Caden, I think you heard Grandma call for you. Yeah. I said, so you need to come now. And so he flipped off the TV and came. He says, he was pretty young. He says, Grandma, I think I need to practice that again. And he went back in and turned on the TV and sat down. I said, okay, Caden, it's time to go. He got up and turned it off and came. So it was just a really cute thing of practicing doing the right thing. And if one tool isn't working, choose another. And different kids will respond to different tools. Just like I said, our daughter, restricting friends was the worst thing in the world. Do anything else, just don't throw me in the briar patch. You know, okay? And on page 22, there's character traits there that have the traits and the misuse of traits. So take a look at those sometime in your free time, a resource for you to use. You have a child and they have this character trait, there's a good part of it, and there can also be a misuse of that. So like a child with leadership skills, for example. Really good, but they can really become bossy and demanding of their own way. Okay. Now your bonus.
Okay, those 7 are in your book. This one you have to write in because it's mine. And you put my little initials after it, SMH. It's his. Try something different. Be creative. My mother had this ability to be creative. One time I stomped my foot. When I did something, I stomped my feet. She just looked at me and says, "Oh, you want to stomp your feet? Go get the yardstick." So I went to get a yardstick. She says, "Let's go out to the kitchen." I thought, what's she going to do? She said, "Okay, for the next 10 minutes, you're going to stomp your feet." The yardstick was to make sure that she could tap my ankles when I was slowing down. We had concrete slab foundation with a tile floor. You know what 10 minutes of stomping your feet is like on concrete? That was the last time I stomped my feet. It was my first and it was my last. So sometimes you need to become creative.
One night, I had a wondrous dream. A set of prints on the sand was seen. The footprints of my precious Lord, yet mine not along the shore. But then a stranger print appeared. I asked the Lord, "What have we here? This print is large and round and neat, but Lord, it's just too big for feet." "My child," he said in somber tones, "for miles I carried you alone. I challenged you to seek my face, take up your cross, and walk in grace. You disobeyed, you would not grow. You would not stand against the flow. Your neck was stiff, your ears were shut. So there I dropped you on your butt." Because in life there comes a time when one must fight, when one must climb, when one must rise and take a stand, or leave one's butt print in the sand.
Okay, so there will come a time.
I got another illustration.
Oh.
A lot of time when I do counseling, I have no idea what I'm sometimes going to suggest. And sometimes they're off-the-wall ideas. One time a mom came to me and says, "My 16-year-old kid just pushes my buttons. We end up getting in a fight." Says, "What can I do?" I said, "I'll tell you what. Next time you know that he's starting to push your buttons, look at him straight in the face and says, 'You know, I don't want to argue this time. I want to go out for ice cream. You want to join me?'" Well, I asked her later on, "How'd it go?" She says, "The first time we ever sat down and really talked." Is all of a sudden he actually wanted to talk to me, and we went out for ice cream and talked. Sometimes outside the box is a better solution than a lot of these things up here, but you got to be thinking outside the box, saying, what will work with this particular child?
And, you know, we only have a short time to really parent our kids or to grandparent our kids. That time comes where either they have learned to stand or they leave their butt print in the sand. And so we need to take advantage of the opportunities we have and do all we can. And it's easy as parents sometimes to feel like, I'm not doing this right, I'm not doing this right, I'm not doing this right, I'm failed again. And we have to appropriate God's grace to us as well. He knows our infirmities also. And trust our kids to God. Okay, let's move on to probably the most important time of this whole weekend, and that's the positive conclusion.
Okay, so, how do you end correction time? I don't care what the method is. It might be grounding, it might be timeout, it might be whatever. What do you do at the end of it? Let's say you sit there and have been using timeout and say, go to your room for 10 minutes. Or you're grounded for the next 3 days. Or whatever it is. What do you do at the end of that time period?
Usually have one-on-one with my kids after a spanking or a really harsh sort of day that's just been, I've been nagging at them all day, that kind of thing. We usually sit down and I'll play Lego or we'll read a book or something, and I find that reconnection is really powerful.
Okay, you try to think of a way to reconnect. Okay. Oftentimes, we just tell our kids, hey, your time's up. Or you're no longer grounded. But we don't think of actually what are we trying to teach our children in that process. Sort of like the one that Claudia mentioned earlier about our son dealing with a person where the son was grounded for 6 months and they had no idea why he was grounded. Because they had forgot the offense, but the grounding was still in effect. So what do? Claudia has a brother, and consequences of rape create a distance in relationship, or the building of anger or frustration. Claudia has a brother, and he's 3.5 years older than she is. One time we're in Dallas, and he's talking to me. Dad has been dead for a period of time. He's retired. He's talking to me. He goes about the woes of his childhood. His number one thing was, I have no idea why Dad was so mad at me. That's the only memory he had of Dad, was Dad being mad at him. His dad never found a way to reconnect. Of course, it's hard to reconnect after you beat your kid, but that's another story. But it creates distance. So we're going to talk about a positive conclusion. That is, how can we actually teach our children something after there has been a consequence or after there has been a break? Okay?
Okay, so we're going to talk about the word discipline. You notice that we have not really used the word discipline when we've talked about corrective actions. We have used the word correction, corrective action. Discipline comes from the word to teach or to disciple. And I want you to kind of get that separated in your mind, that there are corrective actions and then there's discipline. The corrective actions, the break, all this is, especially the corrective actions, the tools in the toolbox. Consequences are a tool to get your child's attention. That's not our goal. Our goal is not that. Our goal is to discipline our children or to teach them, and we use those corrective actions to get their attention because they're kind of stiff-necked and stubborn and they aren't getting it otherwise. Okay, so let's look. Punishment focuses on the past deed. What you did was wrong. You did the crime. You do the time. Discipline, it focuses on the future. What can we learn from this? How can your life and my life change from this? Punishment is too often out of frustration, anger. I finally had it, so you're getting punished. Discipline, the emphasis again is on that relationship, that parent-child relationship. And punishment focuses on justice. There we are again with that. You did it, you've got to pay. You're speeding, you pay the ticket. And discipline focuses on teaching wisdom. We want our child to grow to be a wise man or a wise woman. So we're going to focus on teaching wisdom, teaching them how to live life. The positive conclusion that we're going to talk now means the difference between punishment and discipline. That parents often think consequences mean the discipline. Consequences are to get the child's attention. Discipline takes place in the positive conclusion. It gives the positive conclusion gives the child a new way to process offenses and focuses on the lessons being learned. The positive conclusion is a discussion that we have with your child after the consequences. And the purpose of this discussion is to clarify the offense, make a plan for next time, and offer encouragement to do the right thing. And those are the three things that we're going to focus in on this positive conclusion. It's a chance to guide heart change. It takes place at the end of a break or the end of a consequence.
Okay, just a couple reminders. Make sure you're not angry, which is obviously we talked about throughout this whole thing. Use a calm voice throughout the whole process, and that's probably hard. Some people like me have a louder voice, so I have to dial it back if I want to teach, is I have to go a little bit calmer. Okay, but make sure you're not angry, use a calm voice. If you're angry, the focus is upon you rather than their behavior and the lesson to be learned. So make sure that you're not angry, and to make sure that you're not harsh. Saying, I want to teach you something. Is this a time that you're actually going to discipline or disciple your child and teach them what you want to learn? There's going to be 3 questions and a statement. And so we want to look at those 3 questions and a statement.
Actually, because you are here today, wait, there's more. We're going to throw in a bonus 4th question for you. Only for you. You won't find it in any of the books, but we'll tell you about it when we get there. Okay, so the first question is, what did you do wrong? What is the question we usually ask? No, you're different than me. Mine was always, why'd you do that? Why did you do that? Well, I can tell you why your child did that. Because they have a sin nature and it wasn't under control. Okay, you got your answer. So what we're looking at is, what did you do wrong? And this is actually the act of confession. Confession is our agreeing with God that what we did was wrong. God, you said this was sin, and I sinned in this way. This is what I did that was wrong. So what did you do wrong? And most time kids know what it is. Sometimes the child may not know what it is, and you may have to help them through that. But even if you have to help the child through that, if your child is verbal, you want to have them say it with their own mouth after you've guided them through what was wrong. So say, now, what was it that you did wrong? Because there's a part of confession that's important for us to say it with our own mouth. Rather than saying, yeah, I did it. Yeah, yeah. What did you do? I hit my brother. Okay? That's what you did was wrong. Okay? Sometimes a child will respond with, I didn't do anything wrong. And they might go into one of these things. They might be a blamer. But he did. Okay? That's not what we're looking at right now. And you say, you know what? We'll take care of John here, too. What is it that you did wrong? And if you have 2 or more children that were involved in a situation, separate it, deal with them each individually. Get each to accept their part of what went wrong. And we still do this with our grandkids. You know, when something goes south. And, you know, it's maybe this one is 99.9% to blame. Okay, then what was your part in it? Well, I told her that she wasn't the boss of us and she couldn't tell us what to do. And that made things get a little worse. Okay? Some people, they get into rationalization, listing the reasons why they did it. Well, that teacher just doesn't even know how to teach. So that's why I did it. She doesn't have any control in the classroom. You know, that rationalization of why I did it. Justification. Looking for evidence to convince others that their offense was reasonable. Well, and it wasn't as bad as what someone else did. What I did wasn't as bad. I'm better than someone else. The other kids, they were all doing this. But I wasn't so bad, so I shouldn't have any punishment. So we're going to watch out for these three things: the blamers, the rationalizers.
Sazers.
There we go.
It's a new word.
Yes. And the justifiers.
Okay, question number 2. Why was that wrong? It is not just what did you do wrong, but why was it wrong? Here's actually a cartoon I found one time. It's a question we often ask, which Claudia just mentioned. Why'd you do that? Down at the bottom, useless parenting question number 1. Is, yes, we know as Christians why they do it, but they don't have to be a Christian mindset. We know that children do wrong because they're children. Foolishness is wrapped up in the heart of a child. They do wrong because they're children. And so, why was it wrong? This is an opportunity for you to be able to sit there and say, what's going on in my child's heart? Remember Proverbs 20, verse 5. The purposes of man's heart are deep waters, but a man of understanding draws them out. Is what's going on in your child's life? Is it wrong beliefs or wrong values? For instance, the videos that we saw before lunch. Is he had a wrong value, a wrong belief? That's woman's work. Well, a lot of people have wrong values. It's my life. I can do what I want. And as your kids get into teenage years, you'll hear that more often. I can do what I want. It's my life. Sometimes wrong values. Everybody tells a lie. Well, that may be true. But in this situation, you're in trouble because you did tell a lie. And so what we want to do is look behind that and say, what's going on in the life of a child? One time we were doing parent coaching with a family in Idaho. And the child had what they called was the mood. The mood was basically being uncooperative, lack of happiness, basically being grumpy. So we sat there and said, what is a good characteristic trait for him to learn? So we decided that perhaps Caleb needs to have joy in his life. How do you teach a kid joy? Well, we started talking about joy, what it means, what it can do for you, how the benefits of being joyful. And we encourage him to start showing acts of appreciation towards his family and be joyful about it. He did something that nobody would ever guess. He loved to go down to the river and collect rocks. And he had collected a bunch of flat rocks and painted them. On the front of them, he wrote joy. We talked to his father after he started doing this. He says, I have a pocket full of the happiest things in my life. I have joy rocks in my pocket. Yes, Caleb, when he does a task, leaves a joy rock behind, saying that I'm doing this task because I want to. I'm joyful in doing it. And that's the importance. So we want you to sit there and look at those traits, character traits. We want you to tie things to their character. Why you want to do corrective measures is because of their correct character. Why you want them to avoid certain things is because of where that character trait might lead. And so the importance of character. For small children, it's very easy. Either you learn to be kind, you learn to obey, or you show respect. For older ones, and I talked to somebody, I forgot who it was, somebody has an older child, 17-year-old that does not do dishes at home and sort of leaves everything messy, but does everything well at work. And one of the things that we want to do as they get older is, what is your vision for your future? Where do you think that's going to lead you if you continue this pattern? If I sit there and disrespect authorities, where do you think that's going to lead you eventually? Where could it possibly lead you? If you don't know, I can take you down to the jail and show you. That's a possibility for your future. If you sit there and show, you're a liar, well, I can take you to Washington, D.C. and show you a bunch of them. Okay? Oh, no, that's an American joke. Is the fact that you want to sit there and say, what is your future? Because we want you, time you're 18, to start to be independent. As I tell parents and kids, this is your life. Your kids, when they're born, are totally dependent upon somebody else, and hopefully time they're 18, they are self-dependent. You as a parent are in total control when they're born, and very little control when they're 18. But sometimes those two things have to cross. The releasing of responsibility and the acceptance of responsibility of the child. And if you hold on to control, more conflict. If a child wants more independence too soon, more conflict. It's a carefully negotiated time frame in their life. There's no set pattern of when it happens. But sometimes you need to allow your child to be in control of their life or working towards it. Because at 18, you have no more control. And so we want to sit there and remind them, why was it wrong?
I know, Steve, you left out this story, but I have to tell it. I'm so sorry. One time after the kids were over, I went into the toy room and we had a tan colored carpet in there. And here I found a piece of computer or copier paper, and there were holes with it. On the ground or on the carpet was an ink pen, some holes, and then there was these ink lines on the carpeting. Well, the next day the boys came back and I had a pretty good idea which one it was. So I said to him, I said, come with me for a moment. I want to show you something. So I did. I went up there and I said, I said, can you tell me about what happened here? And he said, it was an accident. And I said, you know what? I think you're probably telling me the truth. And I think this first time that this happened, it was an accident. You had the pen and it went through the paper and it made a mark on the carpet. I said, but with the number of holes in the paper and the number of lines I see, I think after that first one, it wasn't an accident anymore. And they were getting ready to go to Dozer Days, and he was like 7. And that was the day they got to go to Dozer Days and get and climb up on the big bulldozers and dump trucks and loaders and all sorts of things. And they even got to operate some of those. Oh, big time in a 7-year-old's life to go to Dozer Days. You get a hard hat, you get a t-shirt. And I said, I think what needs to happen here, that instead of you going to Dozer Days, you stay here and help me clean up this carpet. The devastation on his face. I let him do it. I said, but you know what? I'm going to do something today so that you learn something. I said, and the word you're going to learn is mercy. I said, I'm going to have mercy on you and let you go to Dozer Days. And another time, you're going to help Grandma clean this up. You know what? This kid at age 7 could give you a definition of mercy. It's not getting the punishment that I deserved. In fact, I asked him, I said, don't you think that's probably what is deserved? When I told him about this. nearly in tears. And so it was like, so he learned mercy. Number 3, what will you do differently next time? It's wrong to discipline children without teaching them how to respond properly next time. I was doing a writing thing with the kids, and I was listening to this guy talking about kids with creative writing and writing essays and stuff. And if you ask a kid, well, don't you think you could have said this better? Well, he says, if the kid thought he could have said it better, he would have said it better. That's a silly question for you as a teacher to be asking. And it's like, and he was suggesting that you give them the way to say it better, and eventually their writing will rise to that level. So here, help them. If they can't come up with it on their own, help them go through the possibilities of this thing's going to come back again. Believe me, as adults, you fail at some response where you should have had a better response. Learn from it, because it's going to come back again. You're going to have the same opportunity, the same kind of difficult person to deal with at another time in your life. Okay, your children, they're growing up, they're going to face the same sort of situation, maybe not exactly the same, but the same sort of situation again and again in their life. And it's important that we have a way to deal properly with that next time. What could you do differently next time? Okay, now the bonus. Are you ready? This came from the same family in Idaho when we were doing the parent coaching with them. They said, well, we actually have a question that we always ask when we're talking to our kids. And it's, who did your actions affect? Or your words? Who did it affect? And that was their cue. You need to make it right with that person or those persons too. So that's not part of National Center of Biblical Parenting's 3 questions and a statement, but that's your little bonus. And if it works for you, you can use that.
Okay, those are the 3 questions. As you notice that, what did you do wrong and why was it wrong? Is basically looking backwards. Now looking forward was what will you do differently next time? And this is one of the most important things you do, is make a statement. Okay, go ahead and try again. Is when you think through Scripture, the whole Bible, God's story is filled with God giving us second chances, third chances, fourth chances, up to 100th chance. Is even the children of Israel, he says, these 10 times that they have tempted me. What happened? He let them try over and over. And sometimes we don't instill the confidence into our children, the fact that they can do something different and do it right the next time. Jenna was a mother and she had 3 children, 2 girls and a boy. And we were working with the family. And we agreed that if the kids did not respond to any of these steps that we had gone through, that she could call me as authority figure. So what happened? Well, one more school morning at 7:30 in the morning, she calls me in a panic. My 3 kids will not do anything right. They don't respond to me at all. Caitlin, Ashley, and Zachary, they're just out of control. So I said, put each one of them on the phone for me. I said, put Caitlin on the phone. Caitlin comes on the phone, I talk to her. I said, put Ashley on the phone. Put Ashley on the phone. Put Zachary on the phone. Put Zachary on the phone and talk to him. A week later, I said, okay, what happened? She says, all of a sudden they turned around. She says, what did you tell them? Says, you did not spend more than 5 seconds with each one. What did you tell them? I just said to them, I think you can do better. It wasn't long, it wasn't prolonged. It was, I believe in you. I believe that you can do the right thing. And our kids need to have that for a clear conscience. They need that so that when they get done with a positive conclusion, they've gone through this process of answering the questions, looking at alternatives, what to do next time. Man, my parents really believe I can do the right thing the next time. That's what God does with us. I believe in you. I believe that you can do the right thing the next time. So we want to be able to have them go and try again. And so, I guess I got another slide. I believe in you. You will make mistakes and there will be consequences, but we can debrief and learn together. And so that's the importance of the positive conclusion.
And one thing, if you're working through the positive conclusion with a teen, you may end up on a rabbit trail down about values. Go on that trip with your teenagers. Do not shut off that communication. The more you can open those lines of communication with your preteen and teen, the easier they're going to find to come to you to talk about things that are bothering them. You know, maybe they do have a wrong value system. Maybe they do think, well, everybody else is doing it. You know, let's go down that, let's talk about that, and go down that discussion with your teen. Don't cut them off.
So the benefits of positive conclusion allows a child to go back to life with a clear conscience. It allows you to reach into your child's heart, which is from Proverbs 20, verse 5. Allows you to teach principles, both family principles as well as spiritual principles, and keeps lines of communication open. The positive conclusion is a gift you give to your child. Remember last night we talked about anger? I said perspective is the gift you give to your child. This is another gift. It's going to be Christmas. You guys are way behind here. We went to Uptown Mall yesterday, and we were surprised about the lack of Christmas decorations that were out in stores. I thought ours had been out since September 1st. I thought, we've had 2 months and you are barely starting at Walmart putting out your Christmas decorations. I thought, man, Canadians don't get it. You gotta we have Black Friday things going on for the first already for a month already.
Yeah.
Black Friday specials. Okay? So it's Christmas time, it's giving time. Well, this is another gift. Is a positive conclusion. It is helping them to have confidence that they can change their life. They can change not only just their behavior, they can change their character. Okay? So a little bit of review. We had instruction.
This is open book.
Oh, I think we'll do it quicker than that.
Okay.
Instruction routine, break, consequences, and positive conclusion are the 3 areas that we talked about today. Instruction routine, parent gets close to the child, learn to come when called for the child. For the parent, consider the timing. For the child, always be ready to receive an instruction. For the parent, give the instruction, make sure it's clear. For the child answers. For the parent, you wait expectantly. Then the child does 2 things. You do the job as if on a mission, and you report back. And then the parent inspects and releases. Then the break, the purpose is to change the heart. How long? The child determines the length of the break. And in the break, when the child is able to explain what was wrong and confess, and along with that confession, or willingness to come back and talk about it with a good attitude. The consequences, we looked at this very briefly: natural, logical, restricting freedom, more parental control, spanking, other authorities or leaders, practicing the right thing, trying something different. In the positive conclusion, 3 questions and a statement. What did you do that was wrong? Why was it wrong? What are you going to do differently next time? Then the statement, go ahead and try again. That's a lot of information we did this afternoon. But we want you to take a little moment to reflect. Once again, we got two things. We got the whole break, and we got the toolbox of consequences, and we got this positive conclusion. What's one thing you could sit there and say, this is something I could use in my life? And then we're going to spend about maybe 15 minutes in question and answers. A couple have written them out, which we will answer. But if you, I'll check the box, make sure no one's added to it. But if you have, you don't want to ask it orally, you can write it out and just slip it to us. We'll still know who you are, but you won't have to talk.
You know, and one of the things about this parenting techniques, if you want to call them that we've so appreciated from Dr. Scott Transky and Joanne Miller, is the biblical basis for this, because it's treating our children the way God deals with us. God, first of all, gives us his word. Respond to my word. Then he will sometimes bring things, give us a time to think things out. Give us a break. Sometimes he leads us into consequences to get our attention. But he's always there waiting for our confession. What is it you did wrong? Why is that wrong? Now what is your course of action? And then always God saying, go try again. I'm with you. I'm here with you. You can do this. Because you're my child. So, that's one of the things I so sincerely love about this parenting material, is that it just ties all in together. And it's been great for me dealing with my own grandkids. Say, this is kind of trite. What would Jesus do? What would God do? What does God do with us? His emphasis is, I want a relationship with you. I want to be a part of your life. I want you to grow strong. I want you to mature. And I'm there with you. So,
Okay.
there's my little sermon.
We got that sermon by Claudia anyways, first of all, does anybody say, boy, this is something I really can grab hold of and say, I can use this with my child in this coming day, coming week?